tell myself. Three, two, one.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another fun-filled dose of A Winner Is You goodness. Time to pop the cap on that beer, pull the stopper from the bottle of whiskey, or if you so desire, smash that can on your head till it explodes like you're some kind of renegade ECW lunatic. Whatever your preference, we are here in your ear holes today, so sit back, relax and enjoy what promises to be a doozy of a podcast episode. This week's game might have 4 in the title, but it's hard to actually assign 4 to the timeline in any way, shape or form. By my count, the original release of this game was the 11th Resident Evil game, but this carnation is the 26th Resident Evil game to hit game stores, and it's the 5th Resident Evil game to cross the hallowed halls of AWIY Towers into our warm, bosom-laden embrace. That's right, folks, it's time to talk all things Resident Evil 4. For those new to the podcast, my name is David, and sitting alongside me, 59 miles across, is Good King Wenceslas himself, aka Alex Aldridge. How are you today, Alex?
I'm all right. I've survived an evening where my wife was out and told me that I would be responsible for putting the baby to bed. She's a toddler now, really. Not really ever done that more than a handful of times. She still needs breast milk to go to sleep, and she still wants mum.
Yeah, you can't do that.
No, I could give her a bottle of milk, but that didn't really go down all that well. But she started off by
cutting holes in your t-shirt and sticking like bottles through.
No, I haven't. I mean, I have. Like, if I've ever been shirtless around her, she does sort of point at my nipples and almost like she's confused.
What are these?
And I have to hide them and be like, "No, they'll do nothing."
Taping them up.
Yeah, to little X's like Madonna or whatever it is. Put some black handprints on like Sable in '98. Anyway, she was crying. She knew that mum wasn't there. She was pointing at the door. And so what usually works if I have to put her to sleep, like I put her to sleep during the day, but at night time it's different. So I decided, I tried to start singing. Yeah. 5-finger death punch or whatever it is. So I started singing to her.
What were you singing? Some sort of metal?
Well, this is where I went wrong, you see. So, she listens to that. Like, she's been forced to listen to that in car journeys and stuff, but singing has to just be shitty kids' songs. There's a really annoying one that goes on about, I like to eat apples and bananas, but then they change it through the alphabet. Through the vowels. So it's like, I like to oat, opals and banana. It's really stupid. So that was one of the ones that I did. Then I decided I was running out of ideas, and I thought, I don't know, I need to just pick one. So I picked, like 5 little monkeys jumping on the bed. You know that one?
I think so.
5 little monkeys jumping on the bed. One fell off and bumped his head. Yeah. Now, I forgot or didn't know until tonight that she knows the actions to that now. So I'm trying to soothe her to sleep, and every time it goes to bumping on the head, she's twatting herself on the head. And then she's wagging her finger like, no more monkeys jumping on the bed. So I thought, well, that was ill-advised. Now I've got my daughter smacking herself in the face instead of falling asleep.
Ready to mosh.
So parents, don't go with 5 little monkeys if you're trying to soothe your kid to sleep if they know the actions to it. Unless you look like some kind of weird, vicarious child abuser. So that's my evening, but other than that, I'm all right. I'm so buzzing for this.
There's lots of places buzzing for this. I am at that period. So I periodically go through periods of buying lots of clothes and then no clothes. So like what that means is that my clothes tend to expire all at the same time. So then I basically need to buy a whole new wardrobe. And I'm starting to sort of approach that period. And I was on that clothes website that does cool t-shirts that you keep talking about, and you have many t-shirts from. I suspect you're even wearing a t-shirt from there.
I believe so. I mean, have I told you about the Hunger Club Resi 4 shirt? I thought you're not going for that one, are you?
That's the one I was going for. So I saw that they've got a limited edition Resi shirt, so I'm going to have to go and, since I've now said it on a podcast, I'm going to have to go and get it before you've edited this and put it
out. That's me, you and Simon will end up owning that. I think we've all bought that. I got the back print one. He went for the front print one, I think.
It's a nice t-shirt.
I'm all about a back print shirt these days.
I like a back print shirt.
Yeah, but this is from Dracula Bite, this Dino Crisis one.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, but I think that Hunger Club Resi 4 one is top notch.
It's real nice.
Yeah,
Real nice. Go and have a look for it, folks. They're only making 100, so I better get my finger out.
I can't believe that's the limit to what they were doing. I didn't even realise that.
Yeah.
I got their Bayonetta 3 one, which I still enjoy. That's good. I really want their Bloodborne one, but they've sold out ages ago.
Oh, that's a shame. Why did they sell? You'd think they could just print on demand.
Should be able to. It's what the Simpsons bootleg places that I get all my stuff for them from. I think they do it all
Can't
on.
be that expensive. It's t-shirt printing, man.
Yeah. Surely technology has aided that endeavour
I
since
think so.
Blink 182 were printing their own shirts in the back of San Diego
Right. Yeah.
alleys before they started charging 200 quid for a gig when they're no longer relevant.
Oh my god! Is
Disgraceful.
that how much they cost these days to go to a Blink gig?
Yeah, 200 quid tickets for that reunion tour.
Oh my god! What a lot of money they'll make from that, though. That's outrageous.
Hell, yeah, it's really outrageous.
Anyway,
Let's get through. I'll get through some early shit, and then I'll ask you your opinions on the game.
Okay, let's do it.
Right. The original Resident Evil 4 obviously came out on the GameCube in 2005. And apparently the development of this remake began in about 2018, led by Studio M2. I think that's part of Capcom. Oh no, sorry, they brought that development team in-house in early 2021, and now it was led by Division 1 team. Many of the staff members of that were from Resident Evil 2 Remake, so now they've come back for this one. So I guess they have the pedigree. And I vividly remember the campaign for the Resident Evil 2 Remake, where we had like a little guy in front of with his little t-shirt on in front of a screen, like, oh, we really hope we do a good job with Resident Evil 2, like being really sort of cautious about it.
That's quite a classic Japanese thing, right? Like I was thinking back to the recent video, the gameplay trailer of Zelda, and that's very similar to someone sitting there going, yes,
yeah, like please don't hate this.
yeah.
Yeah, and apparently they were quite worried about this as well. There's a producer, Yoshiaki Hirabayashi, said he found the idea of remaking Resi 4 challenging because it was already popular. But that's confusing to me because Resi 2 was already popular.
Yeah, that's mad.
So obviously not as popular because the top selling Resident Evil games are like 6, 5, and 4 in that order.
But I guess the darlings of the fans, sort of the hardcore Resi fans, feel like it's all.
Yeah.
Maybe this is not true. My read as a sort of peripheral Resident Evil fan is that people that are really into Resi like really, really rate 4. 4 is the darling.
That's a good point. Yeah, and I think more so, I would have said you should have them being worried about it because of how popular it is to be worried about it because of how. Some would agree that it doesn't even need a remake. I would have been one of those people, vocally saying, "What's the point?" Code Veronica sat there not getting remade. You could probably do one again if
the
you
tank
really
controls,
want.
right? That's why.
Yeah, it must be.
If you're trying to sell it to a modern audience, I would say that's why you need a remake. Personally,
Yeah, KDB would agree, as he said on the previous podcast, right at the beginning, where we did some very early impressions. He said he basically can't play the original anymore, which I'm not on board with. But
I need to try and play the original. I spoke to you. I really, it's one of these games that I'm sitting looking at. I was texting you about it earlier. I really, really want to play it, but I just don't know where I'm going to find the bloody time to play it.
Yeah,
maybe if I get it cheap enough, because like a $5's not too much. Maybe if I can get it cheap enough, I can play it just to try it. I guess. Maybe
I played most of it on Switch last holiday I was on. I basically just smashed through it on Switch.
That's what I need to do. Just next time I'm going on holiday, buy it for Switch.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of stuck on a plane and I've got to play it.
Exactly, and it runs really nicely on Switch handheld as well. So
I guess it's that age where like right in the Switch's zone, in it, where like
basically, yeah, a GameCube game. There we go. 20 odd years old. I can handle this, boys. Interestingly, actually, if you think about Titanfall 2 again, which seems to be coming up quite a lot in referencing how development teams are organized, I suppose. The development team for this game was split into 3 groups that worked on the village, the castle, and the island separately.
Oh, really?
Which is interesting.
Yeah. I guess you could do that as long as you've got a sort of art director that jumps between the three of them, making sure everything looks. But then it doesn't even need to look cohesive, does it? Because they're so different.
And you've already got a blueprint right there, so it's not like you can really go wrong. Just copy what you did in the original.
And unfortunately, I mean, I was going to say it's from the era, but even today, it's probably largely like that. Like, game stories are made after the game in many cases.
Yeah,
like the one that
like Titanfall 2.
Yeah, and Gears of War's another one, because Cliff Bleszinski speaks about that in his autobiography about how he sort of Gears of War was like this finished product, and then they sort of molded a story around the top. So like even when they released Gears of War, as surprise to nobody, even when they released Gears of War 1, they didn't know the answers to the questions that they were asking, like why is the Locust Queen human, etc. etc.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Funny for somebody to like design that character as a woman and go to Cliff and be like, what did you think to this? And he goes, yep. No one's like, sorry, can I ask why it's a woman? No, don't worry about it. We'll get it in number 4.
We'll figure it out. Just go with it.
Yeah. Apparently, like the main aims for the team for this were like expanding Ashley's characterization, which we'll get into later, and her relationship with Leon, and to make the story more horror focused as to how the visuals were designed as well, to try and make it improve the idea of horror. Which I, as a person who's played Resident Evil 4 more than sort of 10 times, I would say they succeeded. It's far scarier than the original.
The remake's scarier than the GameCube.
Oh, hands down, yeah. I mean, the original the original sequence in the village is the scariest part of the original game, but I think there are equally scary parts in this game that move forward later on.
Yeah,
I would say.
I guess we're probably going to touch upon it as we go through the podcast. I guess it's just my read on different types of horrors, as I'm eternally fascinated by it. So like there's and I'm probably jumping ahead slightly, but the section where you control Ashley, that section I didn't find scary because...
Did you not?
No, but it's because they significantly changed the controls, so they remove really any... sort of, other than the lantern, they remove any sort of offensive ability or Ashley has. So then I sort of tune into what they're looking for. They're looking for me to run. They want me to dodge. They want me to try and stay out the way of things. Whereas like horror in, I keep bringing it up, but Alien Isolation, there's sections where they don't really change the character's attributes. So you don't know what you're going into in a particular room.
Yeah.
And that's what I find scary, because you're almost asked to work it out on the fly. Whereas this one, I knew exactly what it wanted me to do. Dead Space does the same thing in that it doesn't change the way you interact with the environment, but it changes the way the enemies interact with you. So there's that invincible enemy. That scared me more than maybe the Ashley section in this game.
Okay. For my second New Game Plus playthrough, I was nowhere near as scared because, like you, I kind of knew what I was expecting from it. I think it's more the fact that almost all of the game, although you do get swarmed and you get like kind of surrounded by enemies for a lot of this game, and there will be some that come from behind you, but the fact that you're having to run away so much in Ashley's section meant that almost always the threat was behind you, and it just made me really like anxious and scared. The fact that I could,
that's interesting.
It could be right behind me and I don't know how close it is to killing me. And that last bit where you've got to run around and flick the light switches on.
Oh, that bit, and they're
all like popping out.
That bit was scary, because I was thinking when you were talking about that, I actually found the initial village sequence at the beginning scarier because I didn't know what the game wanted me to do. And I was really frantically running about. I was terrified in that. I was like, oh no, am I in trouble in this game? Is this game going to be either frustrating or too scary for me? But they never does that again. But yeah, I found that it's funny you say that, because I think I had that same reaction to the first sequence of the game, because you obviously knew what you were getting into there.
Yeah, but I definitely felt like it was going to be a struggle, because I mean, it's really hard to go back now into that first mindset of the village attack, because that's one point where I thought, I know exactly what's going to happen now. I can manipulate this game to my wills. But it might be the dead zone problem with the right analog stick that people have complained about. Digital Foundry famously have made a whole point about how it's really bad, but I definitely felt like I was really shit at the game at the beginning, and I was missing all my shots and panicking a lot. But second playthrough around, you probably felt that yourself when you restarted it briefly today, that it's...
Yeah. Well, I didn't even...
You just don't feel that way anymore.
I think I
and
said
Mercenaries even more so.
Exactly. I think I said it to you at the time. I didn't even... The way I was interacting with the village the first time around, sort of just trying to stay back and kite people and sort of corridor them, I didn't even set off that cutscene where you go into the house to get the shotgun.
Yeah.
Because I was...
He still comes through the door at a different place, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you don't get it.
Yeah.
Because in the original game, if you don't get the shotgun, he never shows up. Like, you can avoid him completely in that first bit.
Can you?
Just don't pick up the shotgun, yeah.
Oh, so you can do that whole section just by not getting and then pick up the shotgun after the bell goes?
Yeah. And then this chainsaw guy won't show up.
That you can sort of manipulate the game in that way. I love that. I wish they'd done that again with this game now that you're talking about. That's a very interesting... Because that's a... Like, even with the... You can shoot the bell, like, that. That is extremely... open to manipulation. I'm into that.
Yeah, I think the only reason they do it that way is because they want to keep you on your toes, which fucked me right up. Because when he busts through that door, the first time I'm playing it, I'm like, shotgun, what are you doing?
Yeah,
like, this isn't supposed to happen.
Do you think they do it to keep people like you on their... And I'm all into that as well. It's like, because I feel like you enter games that, like this, for example, that you've played a lot, not just you, but a person would enter games and they're like, right, I know what's happening here, I've got this. And then when the game's like, I've got you, I like that
exactly.
as well. Yeah, I like
that.
I
massively like that, yeah.
They need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, every puzzle in this game is completely different from the original. There are no repeated puzzles whatsoever. The village, the first part of the village, I believe, is one of the only parts in the entire game that is like structurally the same. I think everything else is slightly tweaked. But we'll get to that, because I've got... What we're going to do later on is I've got, like... We'll just go through, like, the sort of chapters or acts.
Okay.
And I'll touch on stuff that is in the original, and you can tell me how you think that sounds compared to what you've just played.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Actually, speaking of the original, I'll go through some stuff on that. So the development of the first game actually began on the PS2 in 1999. And this is what we talked about briefly, I think, on the last pod as well, where like they scrapped a load of versions. They had 4 proposed versions. The first one was by Hideki Kamiya, which famously then turned into Devil May Cry, because it was too far away from Resident Evil. It was like a mad action game. And then other versions were scrapped, like the one that KDB spoke about on the Draft podcast, until Shinji Mikami took over the directorial duties for what would be the final version. And then the GameCube version released first in North America on the 11th of January 2005. We got it in March on the 18th, the day before my birthday, 2005. Do you know what the Capcom 5 is?
No.
So the Capcom 5 was a collaboration between Konami and Nintendo to create 5 GameCube exclusive games to boost hardware sales and demonstrate some third-party support. The 5 games were PN03, which is like a futuristic sort of third-person shooter that apparently is like a cult classic at this point, and is also the only game that remained exclusive to the GameCube, which is kind of ridiculous considering this was supposed to be 5 exclusive games for the GameCube. Beautiful Joe, Dead Phoenix, which was a shoot 'em up that got cancelled, Resi 4, and Killer 7. So yeah, Dead Phoenix got cancelled. PN03 is the only one that stayed exclusive to the GameCube. Beautiful Joe and Killer 7 got loads of critical acclaim, but only sold sort of modestly. Killer 7 is the game that kind of launched the career of Suda51. If you've played it, I don't know if you've played many of his games. Shadows of the Damned is probably one you've probably played.
A bit of Shadows of the Damned and a bit of, is it Summon Hero?
Oh, No More Heroes, yeah.
No More Heroes, yeah.
Yeah. And then
did you not do D4, Dark Dreams Don't Die, or something like that? Was that
he might have done. Yeah. He did Lollipop Chainsaw as well, which I believe is getting a remaster for some reason.
I was watching gameplay footage of that recently. I think a YouTube channel I watched had played that, and I was like, I kind of want to play that.
So do I. So
Killer 7 looks cool.
Killer 7, yeah, I want to play that again. I think that's in my list of games to like catch up on. because I do have it, or at least I did have it on the GameCube, and I think I got rid of it because it was quite expensive. But I've since rebought it on the PS2. And I think it's been remastered somewhere. So yeah, the GameCube version of Resident Evil 4 did not last very long at all. It was on the PlayStation. Sorry, did not last as an exclusive very long at all. It was on the PS2 by the end of the year.
Oh wow.
Beautiful Joe came to the PS2 with expanded features, and Killer 7 also came out on multiple platforms. So, what did I say? North America, GameCube came out on 11th of January, PlayStation 25th of October. So, pretty pathetic in terms of a console exclusive, especially when they signed a deal with Nintendo for that. You can get you look at my box of the GameCube game, it says only on GameCube. It's quite funny.
That was do you know what happened with this? Like, there must be some sort of contractual. Something that fell apart.
I actually don't. I don't know that. No, that's a very good point. I'll have to look into that. I mean, no one on listening to the podcast is going to find the answer unless they look into it themselves. But I want to know the answer to that. Yeah. Like, why did none of these games stay that way? I think it was probably just because of the modest sales. Capcom probably were like, "Sorry, mate,
Nintendo,
your platform's not big enough to hold this. We need to branch out.
We need to make our money."
But it's not the only platform that Resident Evil 4 came to, because it came out on the Wii in sort of May to July 2007.
So that's where I've had my brief experience with this game.
Oh, is that the only version you played before? I wasn't sure which one it was that you played.
Yeah, but I'd only done to the end of the village section. I think that was all I'd done.
I got up to the water hall on the Wii version, and I found that too difficult. And I couldn't do it. I want to play the Wii version again.
Isn't that what I've heard a few people say that's the de facto version? No?
KDB certainly thinks so, doesn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can kind of move and shoot, I think.
Yeah, maybe that's what
I think. Yeah. And then what else did it come out on? iOS in July 2009, and then in April 2010, it got like an HD port for the iPad.
What? I suppose that's probably okay in 2023 because you can hook up a controller to that now. But in 2009,
I remember having it.
Awful.
I don't think it was the full game, and I don't remember it being that bad. I think the touch controls weren't terrible because again, you can't move while shooting anyway. So
yeah,
maybe that's what sort of made it easier to do with a crappy no controller. September 2011 came out on the PS3 360. January 2013 came out on Android. August 2016 came out on PS4 and Xbox One. May 2019 it came out on the Switch. And then October 2021 the VR version came out on Oculus Quest 2. So it's been out a fucking shitload of times.
It has.
In the first 20 days, the GameCube version in North America sold over 320,000 copies, and in Europe, it sold its entire 200,000 copies during its first month that it obviously had shipped over there. Apparently, in 2007, in January, Capcom said the GameCube version sold a total of 1.6 million copies, and the PS2 version sold over 2 million copies. And as of December 2021, the game across all those platforms I just mentioned sold roughly, well, they said 11.4 million copies on Wikipedia. I've had different information from that since then.
That's a lot of sales.
So, yeah, 2.5 on PS4, Xbox One, 2.3 million on PS2, 2 million on Wii, 1.2 million on 360 and PS3, 1.8 million on the PC version. It's apparently the third best-selling Resident Evil game, behind Resident Evil 6 and Resident Evil 5, according to Game Rant.
Okay. I mean, that's pretty good, because at least 5 and 6 are just, they sold mental numbers, especially for what they are.
The hype for 6 was crazy, only to let a lot of people down, including the two of us.
Yeah. We couldn't even play it for the pod.
That was awful. The current game's doing pretty well. PC, the Metacritic scores for PC is 92, PS5 93, and Xbox Series X is 91 on Metacritic. And obviously places like IGN and GameSpot have given it a 10 out of 10. Mm-hmm. It has apparently sold over 4 million copies worldwide already. Capcom announced that Friday. So at time of recording, that's last Friday, 7th of April. It sold 3 million within its first 2 days of release. Which, so according to the guy who wrote that Itchy Tasty book, That makes it the second fastest selling Resident Evil in history. Although he does expect it to be faster and overtake Resident Evil 6, because that didn't hit 5 million copies until nearly a year after launch. But he reckons this one's gonna. So yeah, if we can knock that off the top,
I just feel better.
That'd be lovely.
Feel better about life in general. Feel better about the world.
Yeah, Capcom could probably stop being. I wonder if they are embarrassed that the highest selling Resident Evil game is the one that everybody hates, or the one that is the most critically panned.
They should be.
They really should. So now we'll move on to general thoughts. And the first thing I've got here is story beats and characters. I haven't actually really written down the story. I don't know why. But as somebody who's come into it completely like for this version only, what do you think to the what do you think to the story, and what do you think to the characters?
I thought it was interesting. Again, like I feel like I need to go through this rigmarole on the podcast every time we play a Resident Evil game. But like every time I play one, for some reason, it's like I almost need to get my head around the vibe that it's putting out. And once I can kind of get on board with the vibe, I'm fully in on it, and I enjoy it. Like the first time Leon starts his little quips, I'm like, oh god, this is making me cringe. And then I think I said something like that on a stream, and you were like, oh no, I need more of that. And I was like, oh yeah, Resident Evil is schlocky. It is a bit silly, and it's meant to be.
It certainly was for the original version of this.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. It's like this is not someone sitting in their bedroom thinking that he's actually cool. He is meant to be a bit silly. So once I got that kind of shake from you, I was like, oh yeah, I'm quite in on this. A lot of people find Ashley annoying. She didn't bug me really at all throughout the game.
There's probably scars there. I'm certainly scarred by her existence for the last 20 odd years. I saw something somewhere say that Leon, like a plus point of the remake was that Leon now talks like a real person would.
He doesn't.
No, I still think, and I think that's where they were kind of stuck in, and why this game would be so difficult to remake, because the first game is so campy and like B-movie silly that they've tried to make this one horror focused. And if you go all the way horror focused and serious, then you lose all the soul of the original. And if you go too close to the original, you can't really make a proper horror game, because it is just going to be silly.
Yeah,
because it's really silly. I'll tell you some stuff later. It's fucking stupid.
I think I largely liked it. If this was my first ever Resident Evil game, I think I would be extremely confused about Ada Wong, because she sort of arrives without context.
Yeah,
it's never really given any context, and just sort of appears like this cool chick every so often and then leaves. And she doesn't even try and help them leave the facility. She leaves them to like almost die in the building collapse and then escape in a jet. I've sort of got the context of her now from having played a few Resident Evil games for this podcast.
Yeah,
I think in isolation
that's a really good point.
Confusing,
because they have actually fleshed out. Well, they flesh out like Leon's training, and they also flesh out Krauser quite a lot in this game. They give him way more context.
Right, okay.
Because in the original game, like he came out of absolutely nowhere, and I'm just like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah, I think I said it to you at the time. I thought he was a guy. He must be a guy from a game I've not played, because they're speaking like.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, but no. So, but you're right. I didn't even think about the fact that they've not done anything really to flesh out Ada, other than Ashley at one point says something like, "Oh, do you know her?" And then later on, Leon says something about, "Oh yeah, she'll be fine. She can get her way out of this situation." But other than that,
I know her sort of good bad, is she good, is she bad thing is a bit of a theme.
Yeah, it's gone a bit far, I think.
Did they clear it up at any point? Like, or is it always a bit, or is she just a sort of mercenary that goes where she gets paid?
Yeah, there is I don't actually remember what happens in it, but there is a DLC for the original game called Separate Ways, I think, which is referenced where at some point Leon says, "I think it's time we go our separate ways."
Okay, because I was like
genius, but apparently that fleshes out a little bit more of what she's up to. But the end of this game, where she's talking to Wesker,
I found
that's not in the original,
right? Yeah, because I saw that and I was like, I was not expecting that.
Yeah,
because she seems like someone who's like a bit murky, but I think if a bit like she always sort of struck me as a bit like Chloe from the Uncharted games, in that she's a bit a bit of a naughty one, but when she's really pushed, she's going to revert to good.
Yeah, to do the right thing, sort of
But
thing.
she's
Yeah.
working with Wesker, so I don't think she can't be that good. Or does she not know what that boy's about? Maybe. I don't know.
Well, she kind of changes it there, doesn't she? At the end, when he tells her, when he starts saying like the ridiculous plan out loud, like, yeah, billions are going to die, mate. She's like, oh, turn my helicopter around then.
Yeah, okay. Just turn it.
Really weird, like turn of, yeah. Like, well, that was easy.
Maybe she is a bit of a Chloe then. I'll turn myself back around on her.
She's quite, I wouldn't say entirely helpless, but she's definitely a lot more naive in Resi 2 when you first meet her. I can't remember what they did to her in the remake.
Resi 2. Now I've got a bit of context because I think I've played 1 a couple times, and I've mostly played it with a guide. 2 is the remake, I think, even properly. Like, I've obviously played other ones as a kid, but not right through. 2 remake was probably the first one I can think of that we went deep into.
We haven't done that one.
I properly
but
played.
Yeah.
So I don't remember now, but it would be interesting to go back with a bit of context to her now.
Yeah, it's just like the change in her from 2 to this, even the original of this, is really jarring. Like she goes from, I mean, it kind of looks like she dies in the first.
Because I thought she was the voice acting was totally okay to me. I didn't get
the problem. Yeah, the problem in people on the internet who are pathetic is that they think she did a really shit job. And it sounds like she's just reading it off her sheet and not trying. And the only thing that I found weird about her voice is that first of all she sounded a bit like Roseanne from that old TV show.
Right.
But
it just didn't register with me.
I think people expect her to be some kind of like sort of temptress or something. So she's supposed to be like sultry and sexy, where in this game she does kind of sound as if she's a little bit like over it and just really kind of not charmed by Leon anymore, and she's got no time for his bullshit.
To be like that, rather than
of course.
It's, as ever, people on the internet maybe. I don't know. I want to say maybe have a point, maybe, but the reaction to it and the way they go about voicing that opinion is completely outrageous.
Yeah, of course, exactly. But I mean, in terms of like her character in Resident Evil 2 to the character in Resident Evil 4 is very, in my opinion, really different.
Okay.
Almost like there's some sort of change that happens
even
to this
in
woman.
the remake. Sorry, am I following properly? Like the
yeah.
I guess you got to follow. I
guess she's like some kind of
timeline is now different from the original timeline.
Oh, I don't know. I guess the time in between the two games is supposedly the same. I would have thought. I can't remember what happens to her in the remake of 2. That's what's going to bother me for this whole thing now. Because in the original 2, it's like she falls off some sort of ledge and it looks as if she's died. And then they bring her back in the original Resident Evil 4 and she's kind of like a secret agent, super sexy spy woman who, like, the first interaction she has with Leon, a man that she last basically told she loved before she seemingly fell to her death. First thing she does now is like try and beat the shit out of him until he says like, you should use knives for close combat or whatever it is that he says.
Oh yeah, and then that other guy, you find out where he got that line from.
Yeah, they're obsessed with it, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're obsessed with like close combat knife attacks.
Well,
what is this, Brixton?
He is an absolute boy. He can like parry chainsaws and axe throws with his knife.
Leon is a good student, if nothing else.
He is.
Even though if he has been forced into it by the president, which was not really part of it either in the original. Like he wasn't forced to be this government agent. I don't really think it was even sort of panned out or even explained like why he was working for whatever it is that he's working for the president for.
So yeah,
it was just like why was he in like a local police department and now he's looking for the president's daughter? But now they've kind of fleshed it out a little bit at the beginning of this game. It sort of says, you got that picture of the president like tapping him on the shoulder and he looks really sad. And then he has to do these like training missions with Krauser, teaching him how to knife fight. Those training missions apparently are in the Dark Side Chronicles on the Wii. There's like a whole part of that game is you and Krauser doing missions in the jungle.
Because I'm going to have to just Google this, but like trying to like connect all these dots together in my head, I'm finding extremely difficult. So that anime sort of CGI anime style Netflix cartoon thing I watched after I'd finished the Netflix live action TV show
Yes.
He works for the president in that, and he ends up.
Does he?
Yeah, and then in 6, actually, now we're thinking about it, you're in the White House, so you're not at the start of 6.
Yeah, he's having a chat with him. Yeah.
I'm confused.
Yeah, because that's right. Because he calls the president Adam or something, doesn't he? Can't imagine a president being called Adam.
No, President Adam. No.
What about? Right, yeah. Let's talk about Ashley, because you said people find her annoying. You don't know why. I mean, I do find her incredibly annoying.
I found her chat, but her game.
Yeah. Okay. What? Where she says that she's a master of unlocking after she's just basically lifted a bar on a door.
Yeah,
which is supposed to be a reference to Jill in the first Resident Evil game.
She also goes,
"How dare you besmirch Jill like that?"
It was when I was playing, I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Oh, I'm really good at this," and then she was just like turning a wheel.
Yeah. and then later on, she's like, "Oh, we should be partners," and he says she can handle herself.
She can't. She can't even, like, every time she jumps off a ledge, you've got to go underneath her and press X or something so that you can catch her.
That was even worse in the original game, because then that was when you could like look up her skirt and she'd have a go at you and stuff. They've taken all of that out, obviously. I mean, I will respect her and the developers of her for giving representation to the unfit human being like myself, where she can't go more than a few steps without being fucking gasping for air. I appreciate that. I do. I feel heard, and yeah. But yeah, I'm getting pretty good at this. Like, love.
You're not. What planet are you on?
The only thing she's good at is hiding in bins and lockers, which she still does, like, reluctantly.
I just found it so funny. She was like, "We could be a team," and I was just like, "Please no, please no."
Now, yeah, that part is funny. And at the end, she also says something like, "Oh, I can speak to my dad, see if I can get you to be my like personal bodyguard." At the end of the original game, she basically asked Leon if he wants to fuck her, and he says no. He just drives up. Yeah. You had to go at me for looking up your skirt like 10 hours ago. Why are you now asking me if you want to bang? Like, no. You don't want to get involved with the president's daughter. There's way too much like red tape going on there. You can't be doing with that.
No.
You don't want to be doing that at Christmas dinner, do you? Talking to the president.
Oh, imagine that Christmas dinner.
Leon, Adam, and Ashley.
Yeah.
Free him killing him or whatever it is he does in 6. Does he kill him in 6?
Oh yeah, does he turn and then Leon?
Does he shoot him? Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, we've rightly erased that from our minds. Who else is in this game? Ramon Salazar, the little wee man with his little wig. I think it's
I'm
a
going to
wig.
be tormented by him to the end of time because his voice is like something I've seen on a TV show.
Oh yeah,
and I cannot place it. I was sitting the whole time, probably not taking in what he said because I was just thinking, "Who are you? What voice is this reminding me of?" I just couldn't do it. You'll get a text from me in like 10 years' time where it'll just come back.
It better not just be you playing the original and being like, "Oh, it reminds me of this guy."
He was all right. He was quite funny, I guess.
Yeah, again, he was a lot weirder and like sort of campy in the original Resident Evil 4.
So how do you feel what I'm picking up here is that they seem to have dialed down the camp quite a bit.
Yeah, they have.
How do you feel about that? Because you like that in Resident Evil, don't you? You're all about that.
I like the ridiculousness of Resident Evil 4, yeah. And I guess it wasn't so much jarring, but it was like surprising, I guess, to play this. Was it surprising? I mean, I knew they were going to go this route with it, but when you're playing it and you're waiting for the silly shit to happen and it doesn't happen, I guess that part is not disappointing, but it just makes it a different experience. I just know that I'm not playing the same kind of game that I was back then, and they've got a different. And to be fair, a lot of the choices that they made in the directions that they took this game do make a lot more logical sense, which we will get to later on. And that, like, even down to the fact that, and I can't remember who I've seen pointing this out, but the fact that like Leon shoots people in cutscenes more logically than he didn't do in the first game. So, for example, there's one part where Ramon is just chatting shit at him. And he just starts shooting him. He's like, he says, "You talk too much," and then like shoots him in the head. which has already been used in that Botchamania thing for "you talk too much." They've already used that on one of the Botchamania videos. And he also shoots Sadler as well, which is, I can't remember what video it was again. It might have been outside Xbox or something, but they were saying like it's really good that for the first time seemingly in any video game ever, a man with a gun is stood feet away from the evil man and actually tries to shoot them rather than letting them talk or run away.
Monster.
Yeah, so props to them for that, and I agree with that point wholeheartedly, that it's great that Leon just decides to stop pulling guns and shooting at people because he's fed up with their bullshit.
I quite like that.
Yeah. In the original game, he throws a knife at the guy's hand, at Ramon's hand. Instead of shooting him, he like cobs a knife and it gets stuck in his hand as he's leaning on a wall, and he has a little cry. And you know, when he's like talking to you and he's got that like sort of a speakerphone tube thing that he's talking into, and he's like, yeah, in the original, like Leon shoots the receiving end of that, like so that it makes a really loud noise, and then Ramon like goes and sort of runs off. In this version, apparently you can actually shoot them yourself, which I think is quite cool. It doesn't do it in a cutscene, which again I was waiting for, but I didn't realize that when he's taunting you, you can just shoot one and he buggers off. He stops talking. It's quite cool. Luis is in this game way more than he is in the first.
Okay.
He survives a hell of a lot longer. He dies in a different way from a different person's hand. Yeah. What do you think to him? He's a like. Yeah, I don't know. They tried to make him more suave, but he was trying to be suave in the first one as well. He talks about the size of Ashley's boobies in the first game, which they again wisely cut out of this one.
Perhaps, yes. Yeah, he's all right. He's a classic sort of. I don't know what I. This is probably not accurate, but I would call him a classic sort of Japanese game, TV show, cool guy trope. Leather jacket, smokes.
Yeah.
Thinks he's great. Calls him. I feel like if you call yourself a ladies' man, you're not a ladies' man, though.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, he's all right. He was quite irritating. But then by the time he died, I was like, oh, that's a shame he's gone. I very much enjoyed his presence in the minecart section.
Yeah, he's not there in the original game at all.
Is he dead by then?
He's dead by then, yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
You do that part all by yourself.
Again, much like a lot of the schlockiness in the Resident Evil games, I grew to love it after an initial, like, ugh. Like, I then come round and think, oh yeah, I quite like this, actually.
Yeah, I don't mind him in this game.
I don't love him. I wasn't upset when he died overly.
No, and it's quite funny because in the original game when he dies, Leon probably goes like, "No." But every time that you die in the game, every time you fail and get a game over because Ashley's died, he just goes, "Oh no." It's so funny. Like the difference between the two death scenes, because I watched it back and saw all the YouTube comments going on about how little he cares when Ashley dies, but when Luis is dead, a man he's met like 3 times in his life, he's just like, "No." They apparently fleshed Luis out like way more in this game. He was like the place you find him, and actually, when you first find Luis in this game, there's like you go into a house and there's like a banging noise. Mm-hmm. In the original game, you go into a house and there's a banging noise, and it's Luis in like a cupboard trying to bang on the door. But in this game, it's a enemy banging on the floor.
I love that.
So again, they fuck with your head thinking you're going to walk and find Luis, but it's actually an enemy you got to kill, and then he's in like a body bag.
But talking about like enemies that jump out on you, I think after that donkey video, the enemy in the toilet is my favourite enemy.
Oh, it's so good.
Especially because you run upstairs and he just sort of resets himself and wanders back to the toilet. It's so good. Just like,
I mean, yeah, he was definitely caught short, so he's obviously had to cut the shit in half, like clench his anus.
I can go finish.
Yeah.
Upstairs again.
He definitely hasn't wiped. I mean, he's pooing through his trousers, which is a weird start. Las Plagas is a bad virus, man. You don't want it. But yeah, apparently Luis, something to do with like where you find him is the house that he actually grew up in. And there's like, I mean, you and I will do a disservice to everybody listening to this podcast because I can guarantee, I know I didn't, and I know you won't have read any of the notes that you pick up in the fucking game.
No.
But there's loads of stuff from Luis there about like how the Undertaker, Vitoris Mendez, like one of the pictures I think is of Luis with his dad. And apparently his dad got on really well with the Mendez guy, the one who looks like the Undertaker.
Right, okay.
And he was like a really good guy, apparently. Like the chief of the village, he used to go around talking to the elderly people and caring for the sick. And he was like a really good guy. But then Las Plagas proper fucks him up. and all the church people come in and take over and start like doing sacrificial rituals.
Mendes is meant to be a bit like he's got real vibes as it Mr. X from Resi 2. And
true.
I guess.
Yeah, Nemesis vibes too. They always seem to have need to have a big unkillable bastard.
And they've always got a hat on and a big leather jacket.
That's a good point, yeah.
Sumi's got the same brand of virus in him as they did.
Yeah. Don't they? I know they do link it all together. Did they not link it all together in Village? This is where you need to listen to like First Aid Spray or a proper Resident Evil podcast, folks.
There's that section at the end, isn't it, where it basically just loads of bits of paper.
Yeah.
Actually, that's the one bit I did read in that game. I sat and read all those bits of paper because I think you told me to. And that was interesting, that. But I've obviously forgotten it since.
Yep. It's getting old and playing lots of games.
It's so funny to think back. I remember the first time I played like a Resident Evil game start to finish. It was Resident Evil 5. And I was at uni. I remember, I think I've said this to you before, I was in a Tim Connor lecture in the IT labs. And I was sitting just basically like reading the Resident Evil wikis. Just like reading about all the lore and stuff. And I can't believe the game that made me read Resi lore was Resi 5.
Yeah.
That's the one that got me, folks. Not 2, not 4, not 3, not 0, 5.
It's really funny that you because you were a PlayStation guy that you just didn't get in on the Resident Evil train back in the day.
I did play them, I think I owned one I don't know about one, but I certainly owned 2. And then I got
what was your jam back then? What was your jam as a kid
on PS1?
Like you get your PlayStation with your first console, kind of properly buying games for yourself, maybe.
Sports games and like Tony Hawk, Cool Borders. Try to think of like Croc, like platformers was my jam. So like when I got a Nintendo 64, I went straight to games like Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah.
So it was like platformers, but then also I did get into the odd sports games. So FIFA I was big into.
Yeah.
I loved basketball.
Tiger Woods 2004.
Football, Tiger Woods, yeah. But yeah, it was mainly platformers, and then first person shooters became a thing, and I was mad into them. Third person shooters.
Yeah, okay, I can kind of see.
And then third person
to
the Uncharted series and stuff like that. It's funny. I think like if you like our opinions on games are broadly similar, but I think if you look at how we came up through the video game industry, we've come up in 2 separate paths. Like I was very much, I wasn't even interested in RPGs until Oblivion came along. Like the Western RPGs I'm all about those, whereas the JRPG wasn't something I ever jived with. It was like
I guess
and Fallout, and that's what got me into RPGs. And then it was like Mass Effect after that, and then after that I was like, oh, I really like Metal Gear Solid. I played that start to finish on PS1. That's anime as shit. So I mean, that undermines everything I've just said. Well,
that was still huge, though, wasn't it? Siphon filter, yeah. I can see how you've avoided it. I mean, a lot of the third-person shooter boom that came with the early 360 era is largely credited to the original Resident Evil 4, Gears of War, Uncharted. They're all apparently sort of heavily influenced by Resi 4.
Yeah, you
at least that started a wave.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see that now, because I think you commented on it as like the Rob Aldridge 3 save thing, and that comes from both corrupted saves in the Elder Scrolls games and also Resi 2. Like I played that up to the section where the dog jumps through it's like like the glass window. It's like an interrogation room. And I was I had no health. I was too injured to cope with it, and I only had 1 save. So I was like, "Well, that's me done," and then just moved on.
Oh yeah. Oh, my dad was just really like massively like, don't ever do just 1 save because then you can't go back if you go wrong. Kind of stuck with me forever. It's like always 3 saves, always like in order, and you go back to the first one when you've done the third one. And
it's a smart man.
I was going to talk about the guns. We can do a quick chat about like our loadout. Okay. They're largely the same, but I found out some stuff today. The first handgun that you get the SG-09R, the one that you start with. That's this pistol from Resident Evil 2 because it says Kendo on this. So it's got Kendo engraved on it. If you zoom in, Robert Kendo is the owner of the gun shop in Resident Evil 2, and the combat knife that you have is the one that's given to you by Marvin, the policeman who's dying in the police station.
Oh, I like that.
He hands you a knife, and it even says that in the description of the weapon in this game. It says like, oh, he's been by his side ever since he got it in the RPD or whatever. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
But yeah, guns. What is your favorite?
That shotgun. What was it? The riot one.
Yeah, the riot
I
gun.
That. Yeah, because like I did laterally move on to the other shotgun.
Striker.
Yeah, but it's not as accurate. It's got a bigger spread.
Yeah, I think if I was to go back and play yet another New Game Plus, I would probably try and max the stats out on that gun and give that one a roll.
Oh yeah, because obviously, once you level up, it must come in, right?
Definitely the power of that gun is the highest in the game. There's a sawn-off shotgun you can get somewhere as well, I think. I can't remember how you get it.
That, but I think that was Gears of War Judgment.
It was. I love the sawed-off shotgun in that, by the way.
Yeah, I like that, and I am such a mark for a good pistol in a game. So like once I got that,
the Red
9 or something, with the stock in the back, I would always default to that.
Yeah,
I did not get on. I can't, and it's this is me rather than the game. I cannot get on with the change in perspectives from when you get a rifle with a scope on it. I really struggle with that.
I don't mind the rifle because that's specifically long range, so yes. I'm kind of wanting it that. But the assault rifle that you get was horrible. Bin that off almost immediately. The one that goes actually first person. Did you use that?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I think I instantly sold it. But the one I got was I was playing Mercenaries today. Luis has got a sort of bolt action rifle with a scope on it, and I was struggling with the scope, so I took the scope off, and it goes first person, and it made it worse. So.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. Well, for me, it makes it worse because it makes it go first person. Yeah. But it's very. Yeah, it's probably maybe a thing you could get your head around because it just then instantly starts working a bit like a Garand, but not the Garand. What's the German bolt action rifle? The
Gewehr.
That's very
whatever you say
close to it. Yeah. It works like one of those.
Yeah, we use quite different weapons because I think my gun I used was the Blacktail. I think that's what it's called. Like basically the fourth handgun you get. That's the Matilda. No. I thought I was just going to chew through ammo with that. I thought it's just not worth going near. I only got it to try and get the Get All Weapons achievement. It's basically the fourth pistol that you can get from the merchant. It's got like quite a high rate of fire and it's quite powerful because you got the first one, which is the one I just said, and you got the Punisher, which is the one that can like shoot through enemies. Then the Red 9, which was your one, and then the Blacktail, I think, was the one I used.
Yeah, the Red 9 it's got a much slower rate of fire, doesn't it? But
it does.
I was fine with it. It was good fun.
How do you think? Well, I mean, I've got like a little note here that says how I really like how reactive the enemies are to being shot. I don't know if that's a relevant point in 2023 anymore, but I love the fact that you can shoot them in the knees and they drop to their knees.
React, yeah.
You can shoot them in the arms. Sometimes their arms fall off, or they'll just like drop a Molotov on themselves.
Oh my god! See, when you point blank shoot someone with a shotgun for the first time, and their body just like disintegrates, and like if you shoot them like there, like half their body just come down. Oh my god!
Yeah, you can really cut a dude in half. Yeah, that is massively improved from the original. How do you think this compares to recent Resident Evil games? So I'm talking specifically like Village 2, the 2 remake and the 3 remake. Because you've played all of those, haven't you? Have you played the 3 remake? Because it's
I've played about maybe an hour of the 3 remake.
I can see why they were so nervous about getting this right, because obviously they cut a lot out of 3 and people were pissed off about it. So I can see why they were worried about doing this one properly, and they definitely went all out to make sure this is not too short or whatever like 3 was.
I liked it. I'm trying. It's been a few years since I've played 2, so I'm struggling to sort of authentically compare those, but I enjoy. I remember really liking 2. I really have played about an hour of 3. Really liked what I played. I just got distracted by something else, or probably had to play another game for a podcast.
Yeah.
I like 4 a lot, and I'm a big fan of the. I think I enjoy the combat perhaps latterly in the games than I do the first person one. So there's a section in Village where you are, who's the guy?
Chris Redfield.
Chris Redfield, and it turns into a shooter. I don't think the engine or I mean, it's fun, that section, but I'm not sure the engine or the sort of pace of the game is maybe built to be able to handle that properly. It's certainly not as fluid as, like, obviously like a Call of Duty or something, which is essentially what you're shooting for in that. It's
it really feels like it
in that section. It just highlights that it's not that. I think so, because of like that sort of thing. I think I prefer the combat in the third person ones better, but
I think I do too. I think everybody probably does.
I found Village scarier.
Yeah. The bit when you're in that like wheat field or whatever, and there's like just rustling going on. God, fucking terrifying.
I found, and I like, and again, going back to this old thing that's like a David trope at this point, it's probably on the bingo card, like the way they explore the horror genres in Village specifically. They obviously don't do that so much in this. I was also thinking the other day, I wonder, I don't know how to put this into words, and I'm not even sure I fully believe this myself, but the thing that keeps coming back to my head is I think I prefer sort of the remake third-person ones. I prefer the sort of first 2/3 more than I prefer the latter 2/3. So there's like obviously like a point where it sort of flips and just goes mad.
There's always that point in Resi games, isn't there?
I quite liked it, and I was sort of ready for it in Village when it did it, and you ended up in that tank. I think I prefer the earlier sections of Resident Evil 4 to the latter.
I think
sections.
That's generally. I heard something today describe the island as the controversial island section. Apparently, people clearly don't like it. I mean, I remember very distinctly like reviews at the time praising Resident Evil 4 for how frequently it would refresh itself and change the environment and change the pacing, but the last section is a bit dodgy. The regenerators are annoying. I suppose they're supposed to be scary. They're just a pain in the arse.
I find them annoying. Yeah.
But I mean, that was obviously their biggest change towards the end of the game, is to introduce them, which on paper is a cool idea. Mm-hmm. But in this one, they're just such a fucking pain in the arse. They're so fast. Like, they run at you. Like, how am I supposed to carefully snipe a very small blob inside this body when he's running at me? And I constantly would waste all my sniper ammo and have to use like a magnum bullet to try and finish him off.
Yeah, I had the same thing. I think I ended up just trying to like take their legs off and run off and do what I had to do, and then just keep running.
Just kind of have to give up. Yeah. I mean, I'm jumping way ahead now, but I had to look up a guide to find that wrench, or did you figure that out?
No, I had to look up a guide as well, because I had no idea what it wanted me to do with that section. And I was I've been in every room where there's no wrenches in any of these rooms. Yeah, I did exactly the same.
There's a fucking note in the game that you pick up in that room that clearly says that there's like a tool inside it or something.
I think I had already picked up that note, and I just didn't read it.
Yeah, and I'd probably read it as well, I probably just skimmed it and went, okay, fine, whatever. The shooting gallery, fucking hell. Did you do any more of the shooting gallery?
No. I kind of realised that I could get through without doing it, so I sort of did a bit of it, and then I was like, I hit a point where I just wasn't having any fun with it whatsoever. So I was like, no, I've got to move on, or I'm going to end up hating this game.
Yeah. In the first game as well, it annoys the piss out of me, even though I can't stop playing it. And in this game, did exactly the same thing. Like I told you, I spent an hour trying to get whatever it was, one gold medal. The best
charm you got was?
I had 2 gold charms. One of them was -1 gunpowder for crafting, and the other one was like 8% faster running speed. I think that's not even negligible. I mean, that's like not even a tangible like increase in the running speed. But I had that. I had those 2, and then I had
the gunpowder one's really good.
Yeah, and then I had one of Ashley, which was like 50% more healing from health or something, from herbs, I think.
Right. Okay.
But I fucked around with it so much because I ended up doing so many of these and getting so many charms that I had one for like 50% cheaper knife repairs, 50% cheaper body
so
armor
you have
repairs.
to like stop, attach the charm, repair your knife, stop.
You can't even do it unless you're at a typewriter,
Ugh.
which obviously is right next to the merchant every single time.
What a faff.
But every time I'd go up to the merchant, I'd go, right, I need to get my cheaper knife repairs, my cheaper body armor repairs. I had one that was like, you get like 100% or something more profit from selling healing items. So in the second playthrough, because I didn't need any of the yellow herbs anymore, I'd put that one on and then sell all my yellow herbs and get like 6,000. Yeah, I like I like the idea of it, because at first when I was just getting these little things, little charms for the case, I was like, what the fuck, why am I putting these on? These are useless. They look shit, and I'm not looking at this menu enough. And then I realized they actually had stats, and I don't mind that, because that's a totally new addition.
It made it be the quality of life if they just let you stick all the charms on. Like, are you really breaking the game?
At least let me swap them out rather than having to go to a fucking typewriter.
Mm-hmm.
In the original game, you would just get money you'd have to go do the shooting gallery till you get to a certain score, and then he'd give you like 10,000 pesetas or something.
It's a cool
and
idea.
You'd get like little models, but these ones you actually get. The only problem with this is that the little like the gacha mechanics, so you've got to fucking put your coins in. Because I had one, you may have even been watching me play it. I had one scenario where I had 3 gold medals. I kept getting a shitty grey, like common charm, and I was reloading my save over and over again, and it was the same one every time. I was like, well, that's not random then, is it?
Not random at all.
There's no RNG there. You're making me have this shit one.
Yep.
Not cool. Speaking of not cool, they've added fucking microtransactions in after reviews have gone out. That's bullshit.
That's a standard trick.
Utter bullshit. Yeah. Shame on you, Capcom, for that. Right.
Yeah, that's rotten. That's rotten.
Yeah.
Do
There's
it or
no.
don't
Yeah.
do it. Have
The game's
fun.
not that challenging to unlock everything. It's just not.
No. Because you know why they've done it. That's dirty.
Well, to what? To avoid being.
To avoid it being
criticised?
commented on in reviews, yeah, and to avoid being
Yeah.
criticised.
But you're going to get criticised for it anyway. But I mean, at that point, they've already sold 4 million copies, so maybe they don't give a shit. I don't know.
Yeah, and people that are going to be motivated by that have already got the game. If you're googling Resident Evil 4 reviews, there's going to be no mention of it, is there? I would just go back and update my review if I owned the website.
Yeah. But I mean, you've done it when the game's been out long enough that anyone who's bought the game prior to that should have unlocked whatever it is that you're trying to get them to pay for.
Yeah,
because it's not that difficult.
That's the thing that's annoying. That I was going to say it almost annoys me more, but it annoys me equally in a different direction. Is that like they're not egregious, i.e., like it doesn't feel like the game is weighted to not do it. So why do it at all?
Yeah,
it's nasty.
I would probably pay if you could let me. I wouldn't pay, but if you added some DLC of like extra costumes and stuff, now that's so much less annoying than like, oh, you can pay to get that gun that you could have unlocked if you just don't want to play the game to get it. No, I do want to play the game. I bought it.
Yeah.
Right. Before we get into,
you're totally right. The classic pay to play the game you've paid money for less.
Yeah. You're paying not to play a game that you've already paid to play. It's so illogical. And I bet you people have done it.
Yeah, I bet you people have done it. And yeah, it just goes back to this is where we seem old, and that it's something that used to be a cheat code 20 years ago.
Yeah. And yet, if we're seeming old, we're the ones who should have less time on our hands and should be the ones that they're trying to go after, I guess, to pay our way through it. But it's just impatient little teenagers again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
I'm going to talk briefly now about the changes, the overall notable differences in this game, and then I'll go into the more like minutiae of changes once we get into like acts and stuff. So obviously the key one is that you can move and shoot at the same time. We've already gone over that. Yep. The payoff for that apparently seems to be there's not a laser sight on pretty much any of the guns other than a couple of pistols. Whereas in the original, you had it on everything.
Yeah, they put it back in the... Or is it that just the type of gun you've got?
I think that's the type of gun you've got in Mercenaries, yeah.
That's honestly the first time I've seen it in the whole time.
Yeah, I think it took me like halfway through my run to be like, oh, I've got the laser sight on. I didn't even pay attention to that. It didn't like twig with me in my head that I was playing with a gun with a laser sight on, which is stupid because I'm complaining that I want the laser sight back. So obviously I'm full of shit. There's auto saving in this game. That's not in the original. Obviously, you had to save at typewriters with a ink ribbon, I think.
I'm fine with the ink ribbon being gone. I would have been okay.
Big time.
I would have been okay if the autosave was gone.
If you play on professional, it is gone.
Okay.
So if you ever really want to get your balls out, play on professional, there is no autosave. The merchant challenges were not in the original game other than, I think, 2 instances of the blue medallions, and you would get the same gun that you got in this game.
Okay.
But spinels in the original Resident Evil 4 were just like a shit treasure, and now they are this trading mechanic, which is entirely new, where you trade certain spinels with them to get things like stocks, treasure maps, bullshit like that.
Your ticket for that upgrade, which I never got enough to get that.
Oh, I got one of those.
What did you spend it on?
Whatever gun that needed it. I got all of them by the end of my second playthrough, yeah. I think I probably put it on... For that one, I probably put it on the shotgun, I guess. The first run, I think I had it on the shotgun and the pistol. Because, again, you get most of your ammo for that. We've already spoken about the shooting range with the medals and the customizing of your attaché case. Knife durability, that wasn't in the original game, but apparently was in Resident Evil 2 Remake, and I did not remember that your knife could break in that as well.
That was okay.
So Leon's been breaking that knife for 2 whole games now that was gifted to him. Ungrateful bastard.
I kept assuming I was going to get an unbreakable knife at some point, but it just never happened.
I believe Kelsey was saying that the one that you can unlock for getting like an A rating, if you play it on hardcore and get an A rating, you get a knife that if you power it up like all the way to the exclusive power up thing, that becomes unbreakable, apparently. Oh, okay. One of the things you'll be breaking your knife doing in this game is parrying, which is not in the original game, and neither are stealth kills.
Oh, really? I like both of those. The parrying is ridiculous but fun. For me.
Yeah, I like the parrying as well. You're really good at it. You, in that mercenaries mode today, seem to have like some kind of zen, just like inert reaction that you just press it whenever you... I never press it. I'm always staring down the sights, but you seem to just be able to instinctively put your gun down and parry. It's amazing. Like, you're really, really good at it.
Thanks.
Yeah. I mean,
it's all those years of hating myself playing Dark Souls games. You've played far more of those than I have.
Well, it's actually quite funny that you mentioned that, because in this game, I did notice that you can actually do like a back stab effectively on enemies that have seen you. You can just walk around the back. If you can somehow get round behind them, you can still stab them in the back with the RT prompt, even though they're still seeing you.
Proper.
There's probably some stupid videos of me going like round in circles for like 2 minutes, just trying to stab a guy and save some ammo. The stealth kills that you can do, you can use on the blind guys as well. Apparently, if you creep up behind them, that's the way you're supposed to take them down, rather than shooting them in the back. The blind guys with the thing on their back, if you just crouch and walk up to them, you can stab them from behind. Whereas in the original game, there'd be no prompt for that.
I was too frantic. I obviously knew they were blind, but I was just my brain was not. I was like, oh god, they've got to die. So I was just unloading on them. Yeah, and that's another time where I would have wasted magnum bullets by missing or something and getting really in the... There's such a commodity, a magnum bullet, that if you miss any shot with them, I feel like a total piece of shit. I was so upset with myself. There's such a commodity in Resident Evil games, and I think this almost does like the opposite effect. Is that I just don't ever engage with magnums. I was thinking I don't remember seeing you use a magnum. Did you even get the second magnum? No. I can't remember what it's called. Killer 7. I would have instantly. Do you find it? Because I would have just instantly sold it. I just don't engage with magnums. Probably, yeah. But it's called the Killer 7, so we've already talked about why it's called the Killer 7. And it was in the original game, obviously. One thing I found out today is that when you do the melee attacks on people, so you like
I remember it's quite funny because at the beginning, when I watched you play on Twitch, and I noticed that, like me, you were sort of struggling to handle how intense the start of the game is, and I was like, "Oh, my classic technique is shoot them in the knees and melee them." And I remember then seeing you aim at knees every time,
Yeah.
and I thought, "I've broken the lad. He's just going to play this way now. And he's going to be kneecapping everyone."
It did because it's such a good tactic though. It's like excellent because you just shoot him in the knee and run up an A, and then if there's like multiple enemies near and he does that kick, it takes out multiple enemies. It's such a good crowd management tactic. If you're low on ammo,
the melee attack I've seen it, makes a bone cracking sound if you've done like a critical melee attack and killed it. If it doesn't make like a sound, then they're going to get up again. So it's like a audio cue and whether you've actually finished them off or not. A lot of people seem to have a problem in this game because they've painted yellow stuff over everything that you can break and get items from. Did you have a problem with that?
No, that seems like standard game design to me.
I mean, again, it is. And if you're talking about trying to have your immersion not being broken because they put yellow paint on stuff, just look at what else is going on.
Yeah.
If you've got an issue with some yellow paint, look at what else is happening.
And they've also not played the Uncharted or Tomb Raider sort of reboot, not remakes, reboots, because they have got yellow everywhere. Yeah,
they do. Crafting ammo, that wasn't in the original game. You could only really craft.
Because I would, as soon as I saw I could craft shotgun bullets, I went straight for those shotgun bullets.
Yeah, that was always. I like the risk. It's a really simple crafting system as well, and it kind of adds to the survival part of the survival horror.
I'm a big fan. It really helps.
But the risk of do I waste these on handgun ammo, or do I save myself for some shotgun shells? Was endlessly.
Was I would just sort of always try and save for shotgun shells, but I would also, when I was going around the game, I would always default to using a pistol until I thought either things are getting out of hand or I'm in trouble here. And then I just whip out the shotgun and just start blasting with abandon. Just like have no compunction or thought towards running out of ammo. It's just like once the shotgun's out, the gloves are off, you're just getting shotgunned. You might be one enemy, you might be a multiples, you might be a strong one, you might be a regular guy. If the shotgun's out, you're getting it. And then I would go back to the pistol just when things calm down again.
Nice. I didn't realise. I remember finding myself getting really annoyed that you couldn't buy gunpowder, and you couldn't even trade. You could.
That.
I think you could trade for gunpowder, but you can only do it once or twice, which pissed me off. You could buy the resources, like the large and small resources, off from you normally had a stock of 3. I didn't realise that if you shoot the crows, they usually drop gunpowder or money. I never shot one crow.
I didn't shoot a crow either, but I did. There was, if I'm honest, there was a couple of times I looked at the crows and thought they look like an achievement or something, but then I just moved
because they were big and fat and slow, weren't they? They weren't flying off; they kind of just hang around.
I didn't shoot. The only time I shot or killed any sort of animal was when the game required me to do it. I wasn't even shooting rats unless I got a specific challenge to do it. I just leave them alone. Guys.
What was I going to say about the animals?
No, just
did you ever see any?
Room, my knife, try to slash them.
I'm not going to waste a pistol bullet on a rat. I would probably stab the first rat I saw in a new area, and because it would even tell you if you'd got one of the 3 before you'd got the note, so then I would know to not bother anymore. Did you ever have a moment where one of the animals attacked a villager? Not the flaming cow, which is amazing. No, I had one, which is the video clip I need to send you.
Until Donkey came along, I didn't see the pigs or anything doing anything of use, really.
Yeah, I had that. I need to show you my video. I think I've still got it, where I was just about to pull the trigger and then a pig came out and off the side of the screen, nutted some woman in the gash. It was so funny. What else we got? There's more treasure in this game. The inlaying of the gems is way better than it was in the first game. You actually have a little chart you can look at that tells you the values of shit. Like I said before, all the puzzles are different. There was a few new guns. We've talked about the assault rifle, which I hate. The bolt gun is one of these guns that I keep seeing people say, get the bolt gun early in the game and make all the mines. And I don't know if I showed you the video, but I told you that I've seen one of the Mendez fight in the barn, there's a guy that I've seen do a clip of where he, like, before the fight starts, because you can kind of look down before he punches you he comes through the wall and punches you to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
You can, like, this guy just shoots like 3 mines down on the floor and then like 5 up on the beam at the top of the thing, and then the guy just dies straight away. As soon as the fight starts, he blows up because he stood on the mines. Then he goes in half and he flies up to the ceiling and blows up again, and then it's over.
Amazing.
Like you can strategically place it before the fight starts. It's really I'll find that video. It's very cool. I didn't really use that. I never used the mines.
That. Not once.
And then there's the LE5 SMG, which is like the second SMG that you get, which I absolutely loved. I used that a lot because it had the exclusive upgrade you could get for it, which is another new thing in this game. Allows you to shoot through 5 targets.
Oh, brilliant.
So it like penetrate 5 enemies at once.
Good. Yeah.
So if you could kite people properly, get that SMG out, you could really cause some shit. It was really handy later on in the game. Guns, you can store your guns in your storage alongside only first aid sprays. I think I could figure out. You couldn't do that in the original game. You could just you'd have to get rid of your gun. If you ran out of space, you'd have to sell it or discard it. This time you can send it back to storage to get it out of there if you wanted to just keep it. They're worth more when you sell them. In the original game, it wouldn't like take into account any upgrades you'd put on them or anything like that. They're worth way more now. As I said, the exclusive upgrades were a new thing. And then the last thing that's a notable change is there's so many QTEs in the first game. And they've basically been completely removed from this. Yeah, there's only like 1 or 2. Well. And some of them ones in the original were like ludicrous shit, like running away from boulders. The whole of the first Krauser fight in the original game is just QTEs. It's just a QTE cutscene. You fail one of them, you're dead.
The one that jumps out to me, a QTE in the Resi game, is the Resi 5 one on the motorbikes and the chains. It's quite early on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that. God, do you remember that bit when you were in the fucking, like, the truck? Not the little truck, but like the little, like, Jeep, and there's all those dudes coming either side. Good God! And then all the little bikes coming behind you, just endless dudes on bikes.
Then there's that big troll guy after you crash that truck.
I don't know. I must have mentioned it in that Resident Evil 5 podcast we did, where I was playing it with Chris on like a harder mode, and we kept dying on that bit, and I was getting really annoyed because I knew it was him that was missing the button prompts.
You did.
And he wouldn't admit that it was him, and I knew it was him because I knew I'm quicker than him on reactions because I would always win games of that. Right. Let's go through the game.
Let's do it.
So, the Act 1. I've done them in 3 acts: the village, the castle, the island. And I'm just going to talk about some notable shit, and I'll tell you if there's anything different from the original game. So let's talk about the village attack, because that is the iconic moment. It's the only bit of the game that you said that you'd done before now. Before that, actually, the opening scene of the game, as I alluded to earlier, so the opening cutscene where you've got people being sacrificed, that was not in the original game. Neither was all the stuff about Leon being forced to join the government and giving a bit of backstory about Krauser. But and yeah, I've also said that as well, that the change is that the chainsaw guy comes at you anyway now, even if you don't touch the shotgun. And I said as well, you can set the cow on fire and it will charge at the villagers and burn them. But yes, the village. Talk us through your thoughts.
Once I sort of had my coaching, so to speak, from you, I loved it. The first time I did it, I was like, I got myself into something I don't want to do here. If this is what the game's going to be like, I don't want to do it. But like once I sort of got my head around what the game wanted me to do, yeah, I love it. I love the frantic nature of it. I love how sort of on your toes you are the whole time. Because I think even, I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, but you must have been, like, there's no way you can play that section and just be calm about that. That is mad.
I thought I would be, but it just got me. Like, I just wasn't. As soon as I started it, just, okay, this doesn't feel like I'm good at this game anymore.
I guess to try and be critical about it, I felt like the reason that it did that is, and maybe I've just played too many Souls games, but I felt like the game was trying to teach me something. And then it just sort of never reverts to that style again. So it's
maybe by island bits a little bit, but yeah.
But overall, I did like it. I like it. like because it's so frantic, and you do a lot of running away, and you're sort of like running upstairs, jumping through windows, like pushing bookcases in front of stuff, and yeah, I love how just sort of, I love it when a game feels like it goes, I'm trying to think how to say it, but basically like if there's an action sequence and it feels, it sort of hits that sweet spot where it feels like things are unraveling, but the spool never really comes off, if that makes sense. Does that mean like you're constantly on your toes, you feel like you're just flying by the seat of your pants, and it just sort of pulls back right at the moment where you're about to sort of fall off the cliff and everything fall apart. It does that really well to me.
It does.
It's really claustrophobic, as well, which adds to that.
Even though it's an open area,
yeah, because the enemies are good at sort of picking, like, you know, like predicting where you're going to go. So like if you go through one door to run away from enemies, there will be other enemies coming through the other door, which I sort of guess adds to that. And there was the odd occasion throughout the game where you can sort of see the AI decide that. So there was a bit in that first area when I was playing it, was it today or yesterday, when I was loaded it up and I was playing it again. There's a bit when you do that village bit, and I was noticing you come round the side of a barn. There's like, it must be like a cross section, because I was like obviously crossing the line, and there was an enemy that was running at me, and then I like hit this corner of the barn, and he'd stop and run, and you could see him going around the back of the barn, and then as soon as you move forward again, he'd, no matter how far around he'd got, he'd turn around and come back again. Like you can see that the game's obviously designed in a way so that the enemies will try and crowd you rather than like trying to kite them. Is a fool's game. You can kite them to a certain extent, but then if you let your guard down, someone will come from behind you, guaranteed. And I love that.
Yeah,
I think that's really well done, that area.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And try it, like, if you picture this as well from like 2005, when the most recent Resident Evil game was probably 0. And this is nothing like what Resident Evil was.
What a break from what you would expect as a Resident Evil fan, that is.
And that's why that series, that sequence is so iconic, because it's just like frantic terror rather than this like slow burning creepy horror game. This is just full on. Yeah. Like, this was probably the greatest example of how to make an action sequence terrifying. It was, it's ridiculous, and it's no wonder that they kept it almost exactly the same. Like, the layout of that first section, as I said earlier, is one of the only ones that's the same across both games, like almost like inch for inch the same. I didn't realize until I found out today, apparently the Ganados will like actually put bear traps down while you're in a fight.
Is that why there's so?
Which is probably why we kept. Yeah. But apparently, you can. Sometimes you can actually catch them like laying a bear trap, or you're kind of running around. And of course, you can make them stand in it themselves as well.
There's too many of those for me, and I could see. I think I very quickly saw what the game was doing. It's obviously like they'll put them somewhere, and then you'll get caught as an enemy's coming towards you, and then you're meant to be like, oh no, the enemy's coming. It didn't have the desired effect. I just found them effing annoying.
I think they actually hurt you in the first game, so at least they didn't do that here. Okay. Yeah. The next section that I've got is not entirely memorable, but it would be if you got hold of the sniper rifle. It's the first time you meet the merchant in like this valley area, which I think is where it tries to kind of redo a little bit of the first village section, where you're in that, you've got like there's kind of layers that go up. You've got some you drop down into an area, and there's people like climbing up from the sides, and there's people chucking TNT at you and all that kind of crap. You meet the village chief after that for the first time, and then the next major thing you do is the lake sequence where you fight Del Lago, the big lake monster, which is largely the same as the original game. Were you aware of the fact?
Is that whole area the same? Because that's a real like almost like a hub at some point where it like branches off to the different parts of the map that you've already been, and then it never returns to that again. It feels like this area, and I thought you were going to go through different parts and there'd be like a hub to each part, but they just never.
Kind of like Village, right?
Yeah,
Village has that bit, doesn't it? That is not in the original game at all. All of that section on the boat is not in the original. They changed out some to different bits and added that in instead.
I guess if you don't have the blue challenges, there's not so
Yeah.
much of a need to go back and forth as much as it's more of a forward only game, is it?
Yeah, and the treasure was probably not as widespread. There's a bit basically later on where you get on a cable car or like a gondola, and you go really high up, and you've got like loads of enemies coming towards you in cable cars and shit, and you can like shoot them, and they make this hilarious noise like as they all fall out of the sides of these cable cars. They took all of that part out and replaced it with this lake section after you do the fight with the big monster.
I quite like that. I don't know what the other section was like to play, but I enjoyed the lake section. I thought it was pretty
Me too.
decent.
Yeah. It was a nice thing for them to add it in that's slightly different, but didn't feel like it was just sort of crammed in and not well thought out. Were you aware of the fact that if you shoot into the lake before you get in the boat, the monster instantly kills you? That's in both the games.
No, I didn't
brought that back again.
I'm glad I didn't do that.
How did you find the fight with Del Lago? Frustrating, fun, bit of both, bit of neither.
Slightly frustrating. There was a couple times where I took damage and I couldn't work out how I was supposed to.
Oh yeah.
Taking damage, but I did it first time, so it's only going to be so frustrating. Maybe frustrating is the wrong word. It was probably a slightly weak point of the game.
Yeah,
but it wasn't like that was awful for me. I don't think.
I genuinely don't know how you're ever supposed to have unlimited harpoons in a boat.
Yeah,
but there we go. Seemingly just endless supply. What I found annoying about that is that if you held down the aim button, which all of a sudden is not LT anymore, it's fucking LB.
Yeah.
If you had that held down and you let go of it, I kept finding he would throw the harpoon anyway, which would then, if I was trying to let go.
Yeah, you're spot on.
I'm trying to let go of the aim to move my boat quickly because he's charging me. He won't do it quickly because he throws the thing anyway. So on hardcore mode, that was a ball ache because you got 3 hits and you're dead.
Oh, I bet.
I failed that a lot of times. Really annoying. So yeah, I didn't enjoy that either. After you've done that Del Lago fight, we just talked about it. You do the little boat kind of exploration section, which is all entirely new. After that, you fight El Gigante with your doggy friend. This guy. Yeah. It's funny, actually. In the original game, as far as I can remember, the price of rocket launchers never really changed, and there was far fewer upgrades for the weapons to do. So I would basically, as far as I can remember, almost every single time I've played Resident Evil 4 the original, I have bought a rocket launcher for the boss fights and just one-shotted every single enemy. So this is the first time I can remember really playing this fight properly.
And how did you find it?
And it's actually quite fun. It's kind of annoying when he charges at you and it's seemingly I think I said to you, like, for some reason the game doesn't have any kind of dodge mechanic, because I'm pretty sure 2 or 3 Remake or both have like a button you can use to kind of like juke out the way. Mm-hmm. This game really needed something like that, because it felt like at times you're going to get hit by this because it wants you to get hit.
Yeah, I guess that's like the odd occasion that this game would irk me was like, and it was short-lived, the being annoyed by it, but it's like it'll pose you with an enemy that requires quite dynamic movement that the game just doesn't have or allow the player to have.
Yeah.
And I absolutely felt that this was quite a moment for that. There was a few times where like the enemy would charge at me and I wasn't sure how I was ever supposed to be out of the way. And it was the one time in the game, I'm sure, maybe I'm misremembering, but there was the odd occasion where it would say press B to evade. And
you had that today?
It was the only time that I would press B to evade and it just wouldn't do it. And I'm fully open to the idea that I was just making an error. Or
it's a really tiny window, I guess, to do it.
Could be.
I've seen your parrying. I know that I believe you if you say you've pressed it in time.
The time, it feels like every other instance in the game, the press B to the evade, I was nailing. And it's just that boss that I wasn't getting it, and it just felt slightly off to me. But I like the idea of the boss. I think in the moment, I was incredibly annoyed by a couple bits, but once I sort of did it and moved on, I can appreciate what it was doing. And I think when I get back to it again in my second playthrough, I'll be less annoyed by it. But yeah, like it was a good boss. That there was a couple moments that just really wound me up.
Just buy a rocket launcher and it'll be over in one shot.
Yeah,
No, you won't have to do it again. Because waiting for that dog to bite his ankles is excruciating. I don't know what the prompt is or how long, if there's a timer on it or something, but it takes too long. Yeah. I love that he picks up the roof of the little cabin things you can go hide in and like throws it at you. He didn't do that in the original.
Oh, really?
I think he smashed them. But in this one, it's so funny that you can just go hide in there and he like rips the ceiling off, just lobs it at you. There's actually 2 fights of him in the original.
Oh, is there?
Yeah. So it comes after the next part. So before we get to that, the next sort of major bit is you go get Ashley in the church, and then you have this. Well, they call it a villa. I don't know why they call it that. It's more of like a cabin, really. I always assumed it was like supposed to look like Evil Dead, where you're in this cabin with Luis, and you're in this sort of standoff with just a wave of enemies breaking through windows and climbing up the side of the building with ladders, and you basically just got to hold out for a certain period of time. I think.
Yeah.
You know the bit I'm talking about?
Yep. Yeah, it's got a bit of a Nazi zombies vibe to it.
Oh, that's it.
Love that.
Yeah, putting wood up on the windows and stuff.
I'd actually be for that being a sort of multiplayer mode in the game. That would be brilliant, I think.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if they've tried to replicate that in anything since. Is there not a moment in 5 that's kind of like that? Where you sort of have to hunker down and just defend yourselves for a bit? I swear there is.
Oh, I guess there's that start area where you're in that building.
Yeah.
And there's that sort of, I don't know, is it like a public execution going on or something like that?
Yeah.
That's. I guess that's kind of similar. But you end up just running around in that.
Yeah, that felt like a mix of that and them just trying to do the village bit again. Like, we need to replicate that amazing start of Resi 4 again and get people excited for it. I believe, although this is largely the same as the original, I'm pretty sure as well, like if you shoot Luis by accident too many times, it'll game over you and he'll just shoot you dead. That definitely happens in the first one. You've got friendly fire on, so if you accidentally shoot him too many times, he just kills you.
Oh my god!
I'm pretty sure that happens in this one as well. So don't shoot Luis.
He will come for you.
He will come for you.
He's just a scientist, is he? That's kind of what it turns out.
Yes. Yeah, and
Leon's a special agent.
Yeah, with knife training.
Yeah, extensive knife training.
Yeah. So yeah, the next part that was what I was getting to earlier. So in the original game, you've got like 2 split paths that you can take, and one path takes you towards another fight with another El Gigante, and that one's more of like a puzzle fight where you can like kite him to one edge of this battle arena and drop a boulder on his head. But the other direction is the fight with the 2 chainsaw sisters, which is way sort of better introduced in this game, where you go pick that thing off the wall and the 2 chainsaws come through the wall. It's fucking awesome. One of them is harder than the other one. I don't know if it's her mum. Well, it's supposed to be sisters.
Oh, are they?
So I guess it's the older sister, because one of them takes a way bigger pounding than the other one.
Yeah,
the health pool must be like almost double. But that's another really frantic section that, again,
really frantic.
Is them trying to recycle like the smallish sort of area. Lots of places you can go in and out of, boxed in. There's some elevation you can use, and there's chainsaw guys.
First bit I remember telling Ashley to get in a cupboard.
That's the first bit I remember them having that you could do that. I know in the original they were
she just basically
earlier moments.
Get in there, and she's like, "What? Why?"
Yeah. Again, that's got to be like a nod to people who've played the original to kind of like be like, this would be really awkward for you to ask her to do and for her to do. But in the original, she's just like, yeah, okay. And there's like dumpsters and stuff she gets in, because I think when you go back through the village in the original one, you can actually make her hide in stuff way earlier than this. I couldn't find any before that bit, which is in some sort of locker while you're getting chained up by the weird women. And then there's the Mendez fight. What did you think to the Mendez fight?
I think I've totally deleted that from my brain. What do you have to do?
Big Undertaker bloke. You're in the barn. He punches you through a wall. You shoot him for a little bit until you split him in half, and then he gets like these big arms, and he like hangs from the ceiling at the back, and he's throwing like wooden fiery shit at you. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fine. That was quite a classic Resi fight, wasn't it? Like, I enjoyed
Yeah.
that. My favourite bit was at the end where the whole barn's on fire and you're like walking around picking up all the dropped items, and Ashley's outside saying, "Come on, get out of there!"
Just yelling at you.
I've got gunpowder to pick up. And some of these herbs
Before they singe,
yeah. Yeah, I thought it was okay. I mean, it's very, very Resident Evil, that section, isn't it?
Yeah. It's it's like a fight that's actually quite basic, really. You don't have a lot of room to move, and he doesn't do a lot of moving. He's just kind of comes forward, swipes, or he'll go back and throw stuff at you.
It's almost left to right, isn't it? Rather than sort of 3D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly, yeah. It's like one of those classic fights you get in like a hack and slash game, like a God of War.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like you've got a big giant enemy in the background, and he'll get close and he'll like hit this side, and then he'll hit that. Like that fucking thing in Dead Space, the final boss of Dead Space.
Yeah, it's very like that. That's a good point. It does that thing where a lot of Resident Evil bosses do to me, in that you see them like they're humans, and then they like split apart and become this massive beast. And I'm like, I always think, how do you see this playing out in your head? So like, obviously they're going to kill me. That's what they see is happening. And then are they just going to live the rest of their life as this abominable beast? Like, you've crossed the Rubicon. You've gone a step too far here that you can't go back. Even like once you've solved
Those legs aren't going back on again.
No, you're not just going to like sit at your desk and do some typing at any point ever again. You're just this mess of a beast that's going to have to live in this barn, and you've caused this yourself.
What an excellent point. I never thought of that like the logic behind that of like
the one
you can't exactly go put the kettle on after this with your giant fucking scorpion hands. Imagine if you just got in a bad car accident instead of getting shot by a policeman. You're just going to turn into a monster and be like, "What's your insurance number?"
The one the funniest one that always sticks in my head is the Resi 5 dude that turns into a fish that you shoot off the back of the boat.
A fucking kraken.
Yeah, you just got to live
Not
in
just
the
a
sea
fish,
now.
but yeah.
Yeah. You fucked it. You've made such a mess of your life.
Oh, it's so funny. That's so good. That's such a good point.
Wesker just comes down once a week with some little flakes that he puts in the water for you. Such a mess.
Yeah. Oh, Mendes, you fucked it. What did Kane think of what you're doing now, Undertaker? The only difference there is that his eye is not a key. His eye is a key in the original game.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, like pops out, you've got to put his eye in a door, and it's all like sticky and gross. But this one, it's just a treasure.
Yeah, I was going to say you do pick up an eye, don't you? But you just sell it. The merchant wants to buy an eye for some reason.
He does. Right, that's the end of the first act. So now we're on to the castle. So before you actually got to the castle in the original game, someone tries to drive a truck at you, and you got to shoot them through the windscreen of a truck and make it crash.
Yes,
that's such an easy insta kill fail. It's such bullshit. So they took that part out, and then you're into the castle and you're getting shot by cannons that you hated. I don't know how I managed to do that on both playthroughs without ever getting hit by the cannon fire. The catapult fire, sorry.
That was an absolute nightmare.
Your problem was that Ashley was just getting dicked by it. So every time you healed her, she'd just get hit by it again.
Yeah.
Because she wouldn't move out of the way.
Yeah, it's probably the one time she was like super annoying with that castle section.
Yeah. And then obviously you get the cannon, don't you, to fire back at them.
Yeah.
Which is quite fun.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the waterhall, which is first of all, you see these new enemies they introduced in the game. You know, the little plaguers thing that goes on the back of them, attached to their back, and then they just leg it at you like some kind of rabid dog. They were pretty terrifying. I did not expect that the first time, and I feel like everything like that in this version is just to fuck with your expectations of what the game's going to do next.
Yeah,
which is the sign of a great reimagining, is to keep it feeling familiar, but then just enough little touches that people don't expect to happen to just mess with what they're expecting, because people are going to have this down to muscle memory at this point.
Yeah, no, I like that. There's sort of like it sort of kicked loose loads of thoughts, like the Alien in Independence Day that takes over that guy in the lab, and then there's also a bit of like Alien about it, but sort of
definitely
inverted face hugger about it. Yeah, I thought it was great. Really loved that.
And I love later on in the game, which again it was in the original, like when you're in the lab on the island, and there's just that guy on he's sort of frozen in the cryo bit, and he's on gurney, and he's kind of like got one of those things on his back, and he's just sort of lying there, like frozen forever.
Yeah, they were good because, and they also created like when they started like throwing them at you later on in the game, and also in the Mercs mode, because they make dead bodies dangerous again.
Yeah,
and they just sort of created another frantic dynamic. I think some of the most fun I had with this game is when it was sort of going full, making me frantic, like just like throw lots of things at me, and you're just sort of having to. You feel like you've not got quite enough ammo. You've got too many enemies around you. You don't have any space, you don't have quite enough to deal with it, but somehow you've just got to find a way to make it work. And yeah, they sort of added a new dimension to that, which I was a big fan of.
I think you said while you were playing Mercenaries earlier, I'm not even breathing. That's so true. You also fight the Garador here the first time, the blind guy we've briefly spoken about. Fucking nightmare that. I mean, every time.
Yeah, he's terrifying.
There's so much, like the area that you fight him in the original game is basically just a square room, but this one you can kind of like, you've got to kind of crouch through those hanging chains, and if you touch any of them, all of a sudden he's fucking Daredevil. He can see through sound. He's a bat. Second time around, it was nice to have a magnum at that point and just two-shot him and he's dead. That's quite funny. If you manage to get a magnum shot to the back, he's done. But I never managed to stab him.
Is that when you get two of them?
No, I hate that bit. That's later on. I really hate that bit. Because the enemies that are around that area are just endless. They will endlessly spawn until you've killed them both. And one of them, again, takes ages. Yeah, I think he's got like extra armor or something. The waterhole bit, much better than it was in the first game. In the first game, the bit where you have to sort of put Ashley up on that ledge and she's got to go turn that wheel, and then she runs around to the other side and turns another wheel, and you've got to basically like snipe the guys running after her. She's miles away in the original from that, and you have to use a sniper or you won't really get a shot away. This one, she's closer, so it's slightly easier.
Yeah.
But I was not looking forward to that.
That bit. That was coming. Yeah, it's okay in there.
Yeah. Yeah. The part after that, the castle battlements, where you have that big armored giant who's lobbing boulders at you, completely new part of the game.
Quite like that.
That's not in the original.
I thought when I initially saw it, I was like, oh, I'm going to hate this. But once I sort of got into a rhythm and got moving, yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think I found that quite annoying. There's a bit where
it's funny given how much of a nightmare I had in a very similar section earlier on.
Oh, what, the first giant fight? Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember why. I think I just must have just somehow got myself overwhelmed, or I was trying to be a dickhead and get like all the treasures and the loot, and I'm like exposing myself to boulder fire needlessly. But I don't mind it. I really thought I was going to have to properly fight him, but you don't. You just shoot with a cannon and he just falls off. But yeah, that's obviously replaces the second proper giant fight in the first game we spoke about earlier. The next main bit worth talking about is the maze, which is basically exactly the same in the first game as it is here, although you're doing slightly different objectives rather than making flags drop down. But the dogs are all the same, and I was really hoping there'd be a way to make Ashley hide for this, but there just isn't. And she's a nightmare to kind of have near you, and there's dogs coming through fucking bushes out of nowhere.
Is having Ashley being able to tell her to stay closer, get back,
that's new? Yeah,
I find that useful.
That was useful,
depending on your situation.
Yeah. What did you think to the maze with the dogs? Did that put the shits up you, or were you kind of calm by then?
I was kind of calm by then. I missed the first one. That's right there when you enter the room.
Yeah.
And then I did the second and the third one. I think I went around the maze like 3 times before I just it's right there.
I think I got lost of when I'd opened the door. I was like, I can't remember where the door is, and it's just like the middle bit, the biggest.
That's when I got off of stairs. It was right in front of me when I did it, because I missed the first one so many times.
Yeah, those dogs aren't actually that bad.
Nah,
I felt like they were worse before. Yeah, they do. And the ones where they're just kind of chained up, like behind a little fence or whatever, a little sort of
and they don't look like dogs either. Like there's other Resi games where the dogs look like dogs, and I don't like shooting them. But there's
Yeah,
they've got like big grinning faces. They look
yeah, they
really
do.
weird.
Yeah, like they're almost tentacled before they even come near you. Yeah, they definitely look less like dogs than the ones in the original game did. I remember the first time I saw it by the church, I thought, "What the fuck have you done to this? It's stupid." The grand. So once you get into the like the church after the maze, you're in this grand hall, which is all very different to the original church.
I quite like that
You've
area.
basically that area, right, feels really like almost like a de facto Resident Evil mansion sort of segment.
Yeah, I thought that.
Like loads of different like puzzles split off in different rooms where you get in pieces to open a door.
Yep.
Like proper. That's classic Resi style. I really
Yeah.
like this area. I think it's really fucking cool. I don't like the Ashley bit, but we've already spoken about that, really, haven't we? In the original game, basically, there are like sort of like lanterns that you have to pick up. She'll pick them up and she can throw them. And the enemies that are trying to come after you in that bit in the original are just like the normal like monk guys, the cultists, and you can just kill them with one throw of a lantern. But in this one, it's all these suits of armor that weren't in it. So this is why I was absolutely shitting it. And I knew I wasn't going to enjoy the Ashley bit because it's pretty tough in the first game. But this time, oh, mate. Like I put that tweet out, didn't I? I said I didn't want to pick the keys up.
Yeah.
And honestly, I tweeted that so I didn't have to pick the keys up. I kept pausing it all the time. I was so scared. Second time around, it was fine because I actually went and got all the treasures and everything. But the first time, yeah, I hated it.
Is that section where you're got to sit at the dinner table and ding the bells? Is that the same?
Yeah. No.
That confused the life out of me for a bit.
Did it?
Yeah.
I think in the original, there's something like there's some pictures, and you read something, and it talks about like it has like a description of what somebody did in this picture, and you've got like shoot a glass of wine on a painting, and then the glass of wine actually breaks, and like the wine drips. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Sounds
But this was a lot more simple of just like copy the thing in a picture
Look
and
at what
sit
I'm
on
having for
sit at a
dinner and
table.
then sit down.
Yeah.
Tell Ashley to sit down.
What's
Sit
for
down.
dinner? Ding the bell. I forgot as well, actually, before you play as Ashley in the original, she's chained up against this wall by all the cultists. She's got these like metal straps, and you've got to try and snipe the straps without accidentally hurting her. Oh, mate, I've died a lot of times for accidentally sniping her through the mouth or whatever.
Accidentally.
Well, yeah, it's cathartic accident, that's for sure. The ballroom, I think, is mostly it's got more going on in it. There's a lot more like areas to get into, but this is the first time that you find these bugs that fly and try and grab you, and a lot of them seem to be like almost like solidified, and then they come to life if you get near them.
Yeah.
Fan? Not a fan?
Don't like
not
the
bothered.
flying enemies. Do not like them. But that's just a personal preference. Like again, with the dead zone on the stick with the aiming and the sort of slightly ever so sluggish sort of movement that these Resident Evil games have, I don't think it lends it well for having fast flying enemies that can go anywhere they want.
Yeah. The worst thing is if they go hovering over like a pit and you shoot them and you're not going to get any treasure.
Yeah.
So annoying. It's almost like you want them to land, but if you shoot them in the air, I'm pretty sure, definitely in the first game, shooting them while they're in the air would make them go down a lot quicker than if they'd landed. Then they were harder to kill.
Right, okay.
So I tried to apply that logic here, and I think it probably largely is the same. There's just loads of them.
Yeah, the only time I really I didn't enjoy them, but they were totally fine, if that makes sense. The only time I was like, I not enjoying this is when you sort of encounter them after you get chucked down that hole.
Yeah.
And they can also go in the water.
Yeah.
I just had to basically run for it in that section and just like overpower it because I had plenty of healing items.
They are actually toned down from the original game where they actually just invisible. They are just invisible in the first game. You can sometimes see the colors of their eyes flash, but they have like some kind of cloaking tech. Whereas in this one, you can see them under the water. And if you had a shotgun at the ready, so for when you do your second playthrough, just get your shotgun out. And as soon as you see movement in the water, just shoot the shotgun and you'll kill him in one hit.
Okay. They're
nowhere near as bad. You do actually eventually get back up to the throne room, which is where you get dropped from, the bit you were just talking about there. But that replaces what was in the original game, and it's like this mental long. It's just like a really long corridor sort of room, but there's lava everywhere. Like there's like flowing lava. There's these statues that are like shaped like dragons that spit fire at you. It's fucking stupid.
Jesus.
Like it's the perfect encapsulation of how dumb the original Resident Evil 4 is. And I knew there wasn't going to be in this game because I thought there's no way they're going to bring that stupid fire room back because it made no sense to be in someone's castle. Where's he fucking sourcing the lava from? Yeah. But you need to just look at a video of that and you'll let's find one right now. Let's find one right now.
Yeah, I'm going to find one.
I'll see if I can find it. Resi 4 lava room. Yeah, it's probably this one or two. Yeah, just Google Resi 4 lava room and it'll be the first one.
What the fuck?
Like, it's so weird.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
So that bit's rightly completely scrapped from the game.
Yeah, I think it's a oh my god, I'm seeing Leon do kicks in this Resi 4 and he's like dislocates his hip every time he does a bloody swinging kick. Yeah, you're right, this is a good thing this has got. It just makes no sense. It doesn't fit in any way whatsoever.
You can...
Oh my god, the cog platform. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Why is that there? What purpose does that room ever serve anyone?
No, thank you.
It's where you keep your lava resources. So yeah, that bit's gone, but you can go back to the throne room. You can sit on the throne again, like you could in the original, and you can also egg the painting of Ramon as the merchant asks you to, because you can use eggs as weapons.
That's a challenge, is it?
Yeah.
And what do you get for that? Just money?
Spinels again. It's one of the little blue notes, and he says, "I'll deface the picture of Salazar because he's a bellend or whatever." So you got to find an egg and chuck it at the picture, and it yeah. Which is foreshadowing to something I'm going to tell you later that's probably going to blow your mind. After you've done that throne room, you eventually get to this section where you have to fight. I think it's called Verdugo, the right hand kind of. I don't know how to describe him. He's like some kind of lizard monster, the black robed dude. When you've got to press the
yeah
liquid nitrogen and like freeze him. Did you kill him?
No.
Or did you just? You didn't.
Just left him. Just ran around, kited him for a bit. Didn't realise I could kill him.
Yeah, you can eventually. If you've got like a magnum and you can freeze him enough times, it's not too bad, but you just get a treasure for doing it. And an achievement, I assume. But yeah, I guess you can just wait for the door to open and run away.
Yeah. Yeah, basically there's a door you can sort of unlock that you can just sort of run around in circles and avoid him until the lift arrives.
I wish I'd seen you do that, because I don't think I saw you do this fight at all. I wish because I was just getting really annoyed because I kept accidentally freezing myself with the nitrogen because he wasn't running through it and I'd waste it, and yeah, really did my head in.
Yeah,
but I guess
I knew I could have killed him. I just assumed he was unkillable when I saw the sort of still scarred. Well, it's not scarred. I'm still living the life of that Dead Space. Enemy that
makes sense.
Freeze, yeah, and I just assumed he was.
Yeah, that makes sense. Why you would think that? Yeah, maybe seems like maybe that's something they probably copied. Actually,
yeah, it could be. Now that we're talking about it.
Yeah, he sucks, but yeah, he is killable. You then have another boss fight, a couple of chapters after that, where you're fighting two of those giants in this blast chamber with Luis. Like as I said, he's not with you this time, like he was in the. Sorry, he is with you, and he wasn't in the original game. And I didn't realise you had to actually drop them before you could open the little lava gate thing and drop them into the lava below. Because I kept doing it, and the first time I remember him saying, he moved. And I was like, why did he move? And he didn't move. I saw him not move.
Yeah, so you get the first one, don't you? Because I dropped the first one, and then the second one I did the same thing, and it just basically moves it.
Yeah. Because on my one, he was dead. He moved, but he moved forwards into the controls where I was stood. So technically, he didn't actually get off the grate, even though the game was saying he's moved away. But I mean, the geometry of it didn't actually line up with that, so he should have died. But
yeah,
because then the second one, obviously, and then the second one, Luis chucks dynamite on his back, and you've got to shoot that and then get rid of him. I don't mind that fight. It's cooler in the first one, I think. You're by yourself, and you have to like swing across above them to try and like press the whatever it is, pull the lever to make the floor disappear. You can do that very quickly on the first one. This one takes a lot longer, and it is tougher to do. And after you've done that, you get to do the fun minecart part, which is way better than the original game, because the original game is quite good. Pain in the arse. I remember the biggest problem with the original is just you just run out of ammo if you're not really prepared for it. Okay. And they jump in your car. It's like it's got like 3 sections to it, and you can move from section to section. And the like chainsaw guys will drop in and like jump from the cart through the carts towards you. Whereas this one, you get unlimited ammo in a red 9, and the chainsaw guy's just in his little cart by himself, like angrily swinging his chainsaw next to you. That was hilarious. I quite enjoyed that bit. You didn't have to steer it in the original either, but I quite enjoyed that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, I thought it was good. Nice throwback to our Donkey Kong Country days.
Really appropriate that we played that before this, 2 minecart games in a row. What else? Krauser, the first fight with Krauser, right? As I said earlier, in the original, first of all, this fight is not for a while yet. It's not, you don't do it at this section in the game. And he doesn't kill Luis in the original game. Luis is actually killed by Sadler, who has this like big tentacle that comes out from under his robe. It looks like a massive wang, and he stabs Luis in the same way. So again, it's Capcom fucking with your expectation of when is Luis going to die. Krauser actually kills him in the remake, but he doesn't in the first game. But yeah, the Krauser fight was just a QTE, like a really long cutscene with tons of really difficult QTE button prompts. And I hate it. This one is a massive improvement because you just get to have a little knife fight for a bit.
Yeah, I quite like the Krauser stuff. It just came from sort of left field. Like, they don't mention him up to that point.
Yeah, at least they show him in the very first cutscene of the game. But I don't think he says his name. It just shows you fighting, like Leon training with a knife guy. Is your battery dead?
Oh, no, it's back. I don't know what happened. I just lost it.
So. Oh, okay. Then you're into the clock tower. Do you want to tell everybody how the clock tower upset you?
Oh, the clock tower just.
Do you not want to talk about it anymore?
Ultimately, it hurt me more. It upset me more than it should have done, because it didn't really waste the game, but it did to me. Like, I'm such a mark for going back and getting collectibles and stuff like that. So rather than allow it to waste my experience, which I have done in games past, I sort of ignore it, play the game, and then double back when I need to, and then just mop up and then do that throughout the game. The game tells you to go back and clear up stuff, which is helpful when you play the game. They get to the end of the first section, it's like, you better go back because you're not coming back here, so go and do anything you need to do.
Yeah,
the game does this again, but it only does it at a section after you can't backtrack, and the blind rage I felt doing that, unmatched in a while.
Yeah.
It just felt unfair. It just felt like the game was jipping me for no reason. And then it, like, the only option was to progress to a boss fight that I was woefully unprepared for, and it wouldn't let me beat him with a pistol. Yeah, so it really annoyed me, that section. I've got over it now. Yeah. I was like, this has really wasted my experience, but I did get over it. It's fine. It annoyed me.
It won't get you again, I suppose. But I noticed that afterwards, because at first I just thought, like, because I remember sending you a screenshot, like, this is the area that I'm in now where I can backtrack. I'm confused how you got cut off. And then you said, oh no, it's the next merchant when you're at the top of the clock tower. And you're right. The one that I was at that section did not tell me to clean up all the loose ends. He doesn't tell you you can't do it. Really stupid.
Daft.
And the fact that you did that fucking fight with the pistol is outrageous. I'd have been like spitting fire. Speaking of spitting fire, actually, on the way up to the clock tower, you've got those big statues of Ramon that spit fire at you.
They're quite fun. That whole section's quite fun, actually. The boulder,
on the lift,
rolling ball section.
Yeah,
because you get halfway up and then you're like, oh god, you have to turn around and run.
Yeah, and again, you can get to the top, and then more of them come at you, and you can just press the button and kill them all with it. But yeah, in the original game, that statue actually chases you. It comes alive and runs after you, and you've got to press a QTE to run away from it. QTE. It's absolutely ludicrous bullshit. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't have to do that again. I knew they weren't going to put that in again either, because I know it's one of the most memed parts of the game. The Ramon fight itself is way harder than the original game. Again, this is coming from a man who's used a rocket launcher on every boss. So in the original, you did have to shoot him a little bit so he would open up his little mouth and expose Ramon kind of like in the middle of that big monster, and then you could rocket launcher him. I did rocket launcher him again my first playthrough in this, in a hilarious video where he said something like, "We've only just begun," and then I shot it with a rocket launcher and it immediately ended, which I found hilarious comic timing. But in this game, you don't actually need a rocket launcher, because if you'd found the golden egg on the lake and there's one in the throne room, those 2 eggs will kill him. That's it. That's all you need.
How are you meant to know that? Is there like stuff written that I'm meant to have read?
I mean, you throw an egg at his painting. I don't know if that's supposed to be like the most obscure foreshadowing of all time. But for some reason, somehow, someone figured out that if you throw a golden egg at him... So, I mean, even if you don't have both of them, if you throw one of the golden eggs at him...
That's like half his health gone, is it?
You can do a couple of magnum shots and then do the stab animation and he's dead.
My God.
So I think next playthrough I'm keeping hold of the 2 gold eggs and trying to kill him.
Yeah,
both
and then
of them.
video that.
What a mad thing.
Just don't miss your throws.
Like Donkey did.
Donkey did.
Yeah. Mental. After you've killed Ramon, you're on to the final act of the game, which is on the island, which is where most people probably would agree that the game starts to go a little bit downhill.
Yeah, kind of comes off the rails a wee bit. I mean, it's not terrible.
No.
But it's certainly the weakest part of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, because, you start off...
It sort of loses its direction a wee bit. It doesn't necessarily feel like the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got enemies with guns now. All of a sudden, the guy with the gun is much worse in the original. He's called JJ. Well, actually, the wiki calls him Gatling Man, which is even worse. And he's just a big bloke with a Gatling gun. Whereas now he's got like a wrist-mounted automatic firing crossbow thing that he was firing at you earlier. I remember you going, "Something's firing at me now. I'm not wanting any part of that." And you ran away, and I knew exactly what it was. Son of a bitch. Yeah, you just like do some basic puzzling stuff. You got to like turn those sort of mounted automatic guns away, like the lasers away from you, so you can get through. Then you get to the surveillance building, which I don't mind the layout of the surveillance building because it's got more puzzly stuff, like coding key cards feels very resi. But the regenerators, man, fuck me. Luckily, the first playthrough, I had a lot of shotgun bullets, and I was just basically taking a leg off and running away every time.
That's how I dealt with them. Yeah, I did. I like you. It's like it was a combination of the speed in which they move at versus like the scope would have been almost better in my mind if it didn't zoom in so much.
Yeah,
like they were already quite close, so I didn't need them to zoom in. It just felt it was really tough, and I just ended up blasting them with shotguns.
Yeah,
until I could either run away or just sort of brute force and hit where I was meant to be hitting.
I assume did you not go back and do? Did you actually go? Speaking of that, actually, did you go back and do any of the like tough enemies or whatever they're called, like the little mini boss enemies, the challenges from? Did you do this one?
I didn't go back and do this one because I knew where I was having to go. I was like, I'm not going back in that area.
That stupid room with the test tubes in it.
Yeah, but they suck there as well. Every other one.
Yeah,
quite enjoyed them for the most part as well.
Yeah, I didn't mind the Knights one. That was quite fun.
Yeah, the Knights one.
The Golden Knight. Mm-hmm. But yeah, these enemies are a fucking nightmare. And I never really twigged what my issue with it is. And you're right, it's the fact that it zooms in. And because you can never get distance enough because they're so fast.
It's that,
and it's first person.
When you floor them as well, and then do that leap.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. Yeah, they should be easier at that point, but they're just, and then even worse when you do the ones that regenerate a second time and they've only got one in their head and they're firing spikes at you all the time. You're better off just running from them, I think. But I thought in my second playthrough, because I already had the scope, I was like, this is going to be a breeze. But it's actually easier when I didn't have it and I just had to shotgun and run away. Certainly quicker.
I'm assuming you didn't, but the thing I ran into with having started a second playthrough is I didn't afford the game enough respect. So I did that village area and I was like, oh, this is going to be a piece of piss, and I was just sort of waltzing around. So, oh no, you can't do that. Can't do this.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I mean, for the first maybe half of the game, it's quite a lot easier because you can one shot and everything.
Mm.
And then it gets to the second half where your guns would have been roughly updated anyway, or upgraded all the way, that you're no stronger than you would have been in the original part of that game. Especially on hardcore, that was a real ball ache towards the end. One thing you don't get to do.
Did you finish
around
the
this
playthrough?
Yeah.
Are you going again, or are you done?
I might go again. I don't know. Not immediately, but I think I'll probably do a proper New Game Plus again and try and get some more weapons. I definitely need to go get that last fucking clockwork guy because I've got 15 out of 16 and I'm so annoyed that I didn't manage to get all of them.
Yeah, you've got to do that. I wish they would do the only thing that sort of, because it's fun to go and replay Resi games and sort of upgrade your weapons and unlock different weapons, like we were talking about that knife, for example.
Yeah.
But I find that I would rather almost like the Hitman 3 us and add content so that you can actually use this stuff, because by the time I've unlocked these items, I find that and maybe this is just me, I can't imagine once, if I got to the point where I'd unlocked everything in the game, that I could be bothered to then go and play it again with all the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm getting at? It's like you
sort of finally got, it's like
and you don't use it.
It's like it's kind of like, you know, that classic thing where the guy's like, what is it, like everybody's dead or something, and he's got a library and he's like, everybody's gone, but at least I finally got time to read my books, and then his glasses break and he can't read any of them. It's kind of like that, like you've done the game, you finally got all the tools, but you've done it, so what's the point? One thing that's missing from this area is that in the original there's like a bit where you get to use a claw operated like waste disposal thing. It's like a massive claw that's supposed to be for putting like dumpsters in this garbage chute. You can pick up enemies with it and drop them in. It's quite funny.
Quite fun, yeah.
They were like wriggling from it and you just go dropping them in. That's quite fun. The cargo depot with the crane is very different in the original game. They're both very annoying parts. In the original, you're on back of this weird like drilling lorry. You're on like a flat part.
Talking about.
Yeah. Reminds me a lot of the thing in is it Total Recall? Where Arnie drives that giant thing with like a big drill on the front and he drills that guy. Benny, I think he drills into. Yeah, it's a great film.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that. Whereas in this case, you're in a more like enclosed area. That one you're constantly moving and the enemies are just like chasing you from behind and jumping on it from above. Whereas this time around, you're basically just in a square area again, and Ashley's operating a crane with a boulder on it. A boulder? What are they called?
Yeah, a wrecking ball type thing.
A wrecking ball, yeah. She's got a wrecking ball on a crane, and she's trying to smash through a wall for you, and she's acting like she's like hot shit. She screams anytime anyone knocks on the window. Hate this bit. Really hate it. So, like, finicky and relentless, and the bit where all those, I think you were pointing out earlier, the little like plagas things that cut like 7 or 8 of them come at once, start like attaching to all the random blokes or coming at you. Oh fuck it, that bit killed me over and over again on hardcore, mate. I hated it. What do you think to this bit?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Basically the same sort of reaction as you do. It was just a bit irritating.
In the original game, after that part, there's another QTE bit before you get to the ruins, and it's a hallway with lasers in it. That's, you know, have you seen the first Resident Evil film?
Yeah.
You know the bit where that guy gets like sliced up by lasers? It's basically a rip-off of that. They put it in for that. but you've got to press the QTE buttons, and Leon does some kind of like full-on Matrix, like diving in slow motion through laser beams to not. Oh, it's so stupid. But it's one of those things that makes me love the original game. Then you had a boss fight with this thing that's just I've been just seen referred to as It, and it's like a weird, like it's got a torso and arms and a head, but it's got a long tail.
Let's Google him.
And he sort of chases you through. You're in these like cargo crates that are suspended high above a pit of death. And you've got to kind of move from one of these crates to another. You've got to press buttons to kind of drop the crates as you go along. You do eventually fight him anyway, but they totally cut him all out of this game, and I don't miss him. He's a ball ache. And there's a time limit on it and everything. It's really stressful moment of the original game that they completely got rid of. One thing that is very similar in the remake to the original is the Krauser like arena, where you've got to go through this gauntlet of bullshit before you eventually have a knife fight with him again. You can't kill him with the knife as easily as you can in the original. And there was a time limit. I forgot there was a time limit on some of this in the original as well, when you actually have to fight with Krauser. All right, what do you think of this section? This is is this part of what you'd say is the game falling off the rails, or
largely?
What?
I mean, like I didn't overly mind this section, I don't think, but yeah, it's just, I don't know. It felt a bit, I don't know. This whole sort of area just feels separate from the rest of the game.
Having a ruins randomly in there is a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Suppose you. I mean,
I don't remember feeling overly offended by it when I was playing it.
Yeah.
But it just sort of doesn't fit to me. But the whole Krauser stuff, like, I enjoy the interactions in isolation, but again, it doesn't make any sense to me, I guess, as a sort of like outside observer of the Resident Evil fandom. Just this sort of guy that pops up. There's obviously history there. It's never, it's just never explained before or after, really.
Yeah. I think, again, there may be some notes that we haven't fully read into that talk about him, but yeah, I don't mind it. Like I say, the lack of time limit is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
The knife, like parrying the knife fight stuff, is quite fun. So yeah, I quite like it. It's done better than it was in the original, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You got a brief moment before the final boss then, where you're going up this summit and you've got your mate in the helicopter. What's the guy's name? Is it Brad? It's not Brad. That's the first game, is it?
Yeah.
But he's got an accent that totally threw you at the beginning. And he's like, "Hey, Leon, let's go get a beer. I'm buying," or whatever it is. Did he shoot you ever? I think he shot me a couple of times.
Yeah, he shot me a few times. Because I couldn't. I think it was it. I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention. It took me a minute to realise he was on my team.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's that section's like silly fun. That I thought.
It's getting full on action game by that point, isn't it? Any pretense of horror is just, they've pissed it all away now. You've got helicopter backup, for fuck's sake. And then that part's largely the same, and then you've got the Saddler fight, which again is very similar to the original game, apart from the final section where he basically, again, it's like those boss fights we talked about earlier, last Dead Space one, where he's filled the screen up. He's very, very static. Ada chucks you a super a rocket launcher, and then bang, one hit, done. Game, not over, but Saddler's fight. I'd say Ramon's probably harder, but this is probably up there. It's quite a good one. I think.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's that when it, like, in this sort of pantheon of good versus bad Resident Evil fights that I can think since we've done. What did I say this was? The 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th Resident Evil game we've done. The one that always sticks out to me is the final fight against Wesker in Resi 5 has been a bad one.
Oh, yeah, that's shit.
It's nowhere near that. It's totally fine. Classic Resi boss battle to me.
Yeah, and there's more of like a skill level required for it.
Yeah, I'd agree with
you actually have to run around and avoid it, and it's not like a gimmicky fight or something like that.
No, it is quite funny going through this and talking about it. Like I said before, my favourite Resi game was always Dead Space, just in having having a bit of what's the word? Having a bit of context to Resident Evil, having a bit of understanding about the games, how much the Dead Space, certainly the first one, pulls from the Resident Evil games. Like there's bosses that are like for like that again. That like Freezy one, the end boss is so Resident Evil. Like it's a very Resi game. In a way,
it really is.
Connected the dots.
Yeah. I mean, it was the obvious influence for the guys making Dead Space, I guess. But yeah, now it's becoming even more obvious to you as you're actually seeing it manifest.
Mm-hmm.
Stadler himself in this game is a real letdown. I think he's probably the worst part of this remake. I think, having said in the previous pod that I prefer the original to this, I'm now not entirely sure. Maybe this is the better game, and it may then stick around in my favourites ever. Sadler in the first game is so like over the top, silly. He talks like this. He's got a really weird voice. Where in this game, he's largely incredibly serious. You don't really see that much of him. In the original game, he hacks Leon's comms device for Hunnigan, and he starts giving you shit.
I think I said
so does Ramon.
He sounds like Donald Trump to me. Like in the early when you start.
He does sound like Donald Trump. Yeah.
Right, Donald Trump about him.
Yeah, that's a very It's really weird. Trying to talk like this, it's really odd. Whereas in the original game, he had a weird accent. He had a funny voice. Oh, it was so much better.
Yeah, I didn't find it that difficult. What was it like on hard mode? You just sort of stay away from him and shoot him.
I fucking bought a rocket launcher.
Smart.
I thought, I've bought all the guns now. This may be the last time I play this through in a long time. I've got loads of money. Fuck it. Bought a rocket launcher, one shot, and then it gets to the next part, and Ada's like, "Here, have a special launcher," and I was like, "Cheers."
Shoot him in his eyeball knees,
and then off we go. Yeah, his eyeball knees. Yeah, I think you can stab him. Something. There's an achievement as well, by the way. If you do a second playthrough, there's an achievement. You got to throw a grenade in Ramon's mouth. Not Sadler, but the Ramon fight. Throw a grenade in his mouth, and there's an achievement for that. You'd think that Sadler was the end of the game, but he's not the end of the game because Ada gives you a fucking jet ski to get out of there. Did you know, and you probably didn't, but you'll know for the next playthrough, if you hold down the A button on Xbox or the X button on PlayStation, as you go over the jumps, you do a stunt and you earn pesetas.
Fantastic. No, I did not know that.
So you know to do that now. He does like a really ill-advised fucking stunt and you earn money for it.
Oh, brilliant. What? Amazing. I
died at this bit on my hardcore playthrough because it's very unforgiving. You've got like 2 hits and that's it. Yeah, you're done. So it's quite tough on that. But it's what a stupid end to the game.
That's great. I was a big fan of that.
I'm a big fan of it as well.
They were going home to America on their jet ski as well. They just sort of.
I think, hopefully they do. But the funniest thing about that is in the original, as I said earlier, they've got to go home to America on a jet ski, having just faced the rejection of Leon to Ashley.
How awkward is that journey going
all the way home? Yeah. They just they go from Spain and they get towards like Cuba. She's like, "Are you sure?" Like, still sure. And that's the end of the game. A wonderful game that I could not put down. In both playthroughs, I just couldn't stop playing it.
Chomped. I was a bit worried because I bought this game about a few days after you at least, and I was like, I saw how fast you were chomping through this. But then you just went again. I was like, okay, it's fine. Yeah. He's going again.
Yeah. I mean, we said that we were going to do that for a Dead Space remake, but I didn't. So I don't think you did either, did you? Did you get through 2 playthroughs of Dead Space remake?
No, don't think so. No, maybe 1.5 because I did the first OG one again. Got like halfway through.
Oh yeah, and then we just jumped into Dead Space 2, so I kind of stopped. I would say this is definitely feels like more, from a content standpoint, it feels like more of a significant change than the Dead Space remake does.
Mm-hmm. It seems more coherent.
Yeah.
Or than the original version. Remake, sorry, are we talking about?
So, like, in terms of like the Dead Space remake versus Resi 4 remake, this feels like more of a significant. There's more significant differences in this than the Dead Space one.
It's a proper remake. Which is the first one, other than sort of controls, is very like for like, isn't it? Like, I can't really think of any major differences between the two.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way that they sort of laid out the station is slightly different, isn't it? So it's more interconnected, and it's not just loading open, screens.
Yeah, you can go back and forth.
Yeah,
yeah. Because I remember back in the original a Winner Is You days, we were speaking about Dead Space when it came out originally, and I think we were talking about how similar the Ishimura was to the mansion in Resident Evil. And then it was a bit of a shock to me then to come back to the remake and realise that they had made it backtrackable.
Yeah.
And it wasn't before, because I if you had asked me pre-remake, I would have told you, yeah, you could backtrack whenever you want.
Yeah.
You couldn't. So it wasn't as Resident Evil mansion-y as we thought it was.
Nope. But that's 2 excellent horror games we've played this year so far.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 as well, I guess. I guess I don't have anything else really to add to it other than maybe like, what is your feeling on remakes at the moment in general? Because there's a lot of them, and this year is full of them.
It's a tough one, isn't it? My sort of knee-jerk reaction is to say I don't want them. I'd rather a new game. But when they're done well, I'm all in for them. So like, I'm up for... I very much enjoyed the Dead Space remake. I enjoyed the Resi 4 remake. I wouldn't say I see the need necessarily so much for the endless The Last of Us remakes, other than the fact that we've got a TV show out for it now, and that feels a bit more cynical. Maybe would feel less cynical towards it if this wasn't the second time they had sort of remastered, re-released. So it came out in PS3, then PS4, then PS5, and each time they've tried to make us all of essential. I know they're called. Are they calling that a remake? I think they're calling this one a remake. But essentially, all they've done is touch up the graphics each time and make it run slightly better, and then charged us full price again. I'm not keen for that. Whereas the Dead Space one, I'm trying to justify this to myself, feels more, and the Resi 4 one feels more substantial and more justified.
Absolutely. Definitely.
And like even just like things like obviously the significant visual upgrades, in addition to like the modernization of the controls, and then also they've been brave enough to change things. Yeah. The Last of Us one, for example, not only is it arrived broken, they've changed nothing, and they've just made it a bit more shiny. And that to me is not something I'm really so on board for. Whereas, I guess, I don't. So this is why I find it difficult to sort of try and loop it round and let you have a chance to speak, because I'm doing a lot of it right now. Is that I think it's a case by case basis. I know we're getting a lot of them just now, but I think I just need to sort of consider each one on its own merits. Like I say, Dead Space feels good to me. Resident Evil 4 feels good to me. The Last of Us doesn't.
Yeah. It's weird because people will complain about it, but then you see a lot of people also saying things like, "Oh, I hope they remake Dead Space 2 now." It's like, is that what you really want? Just them to then go through the series again, like 1, 2, 3. They were going to remake 1, 2, 3. I think the way, I'm going to be biased because I love Resident Evil more than probably almost every game series. But they are splitting their time in the development teams between just keeping continuous releases of like his remake, then a new addition to the series.
I do want to see them going back to old Resident Evil games, because I also know that we're getting the new ones as well. Yeah.
And then they do need it more. Like you didn't really need to remake Dead Space because it was largely still fully playable. But then, this year is full of them. Sometimes there is merit in them, but I think like even towards the end of last year, we had like the Tactics Ogre remaster, which I've bought. They just shadow dropped the fucking Metroid Prime remaster, which I bought.
The Grand Theft Auto ones that were terrible. They made the games worse.
Yeah,
and the
Tales of Symphonia is worse. Oh yeah, that is not on at all. That's the worst part of it. Advance Wars just about to come out this month as well.
Which I will get.
Which I will be. I've already pre-ordered.
I think what we're sort of edging towards a conclusion, though, and correct me if you don't agree, is that like if the game is old and
which Last of Us is not.
No. If it's old and like sort of like graphics have changed significantly and even control schemes have changed significantly. This is an opportunity to bring the game to a modern audience, because let's face it, you and I are freaks. Younger people and even a lot of our mates, they're not going back to play Resident Evil 4, but they will buy this remake and they'll play it. And I think it's probably a good thing that they're getting exposed to these classic games in a way, in a modern context. So in that respect, I'm okay for it. I'm less okay.
You certainly can't say that they're going to, if they wanted to go back and play the original Resident Evil 4 after this, that they've got no avenue to do it, because as we said at the beginning, it's out on every platform ever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just think it's when it feels like they're just trying to make us pay for the game we already own again. That's where
I'm not
on
having that
for that.
No,
this doesn't feel cynical to me, other than microtransactions. That feels cynical, but
that is bullshit. Yeah, but they just keep knocking Resi games out of the park, and I'm here for all of them. I've loved so many Resident Evil games in a row now. 3 is probably the remake of 3 is probably the only misstep, because they just clearly rushed it using the same engine as 2 just to bang it out there, and they should have taken more time with it.
You need to go finish it. It's quite short, you said, as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not a bad game by any stretch. It's just not all of Resident Evil 3, which is a shame. But like, just every time a new Resi comes out, I just enjoy them so much.
Sure, they're going to.
They don't miss.
They're running out of road now, unless they start messing with 5.
I'd like them to do Code Veronica. That's if they don't do that, I think there's a massive missed opportunity.
I said 0.
Yeah, Zero could be all right, but I don't think people care enough about that
as well. But yeah,
it's got to be Code Veronica next. There's not even any debate. I saw an article today, like, which Resident Evil game should Capcom make next or remake next? It's just like, there's only one answer, and it's Code Veronica. They've done 1, 2, 3, 4. Nobody needs to have 5 or 6 remade.
No, we need to pretend 5 and 6 don't exist. Imagine if they remade them as horror games, not action games.
If they can pull that off, they can pull anything off. That's the ultimate. If you can make Resident Evil 6 scary, kudos. But you can't.
They don't do anything. It's just basically the White House becomes the Resident Evil 1 mansion, and you've got to run around there for hours.
I mean, sign me up.
German suplexing the president.
God, yeah, the amount of suplexes and stuff. I feel apparently like the movement and stuff is all like basically taken from Resi 6, so we probably have more to like pay respects to that game than we think, but I'm still not going to do it.
No, it's a terrible game. Get out of my life.
Garbage. Take us home, David.
Let's go home. Let's round up the horses. Go home. Let me find my thing. Okay. So, if you enjoyed what you heard today, and even if you didn't, please subscribe to us on your podcast feed of choice.
I was hoping I've been thinking all day, I hope David does the same line again about subscribe to us, even if you don't like it. And you've done it. So I'm very happy about that.
And please find it deep within your hearts to leave us a review. 5 stars. And if you don't do us 5 stars, give us 5 stars anyway and then go away. You can also like and sub to our YouTube channel, Oh When It Was You Podcast, should your heart desire. You can also get in touch and tell us what you thought about any of the games we've covered here over the years by firing us an email over to owhenitwasyoupod@gmail.com. You can keep up to date with the latest goings on here at Oh When It Was You Towers by following us on Twitter at WhenItIsYouPod, or give myself or Alex a follow at DavidSmiley1 or SuperThrillix respectively, where you can be bombarded with our various chat. Alex, I am still of the opinion that you might think you're a Spurs fan, but you're actually not.
Don't think so, yeah.
Twitter feed.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to
most of the time I go back and like delete it later on. Just like, oh.
What happened? The angry tweets I saw, was it yesterday? What was going on with your broadband? Was like something down. Vodafone
went down for the whole country, and then
did it?
But I was but the like support people on the Twitter were just like, thanks for letting us know there's no outages as far as we can tell. Please raise a call with the support team, and then you couldn't. It would say that their chat was too busy and you couldn't do it. And it'd be like, use our broadband tool on our website, and it wouldn't do anything. It was broken. It just said, I can't check this right now. Please try and do a chat session, and then the chat session would be too busy. It's like, great. So I went to the toilet, and I don't know where my phone was, but I was like, I'm going to have to read a book. Like, there's no internet. I remember I went into the bedroom, and I was obviously desperate. I was like, I'll get my iPad. That's like a phone. And I realised it's not your 3G iPad. I was like, this is useless. There's nothing on it. Fucking picked up John Moxley's book and was like, that's what I have to do. I had to fucking read. I had to hotspot from my phone to my laptop to upload the podcast yesterday.
Good God.
Yeah.
That totally passed me by. But then I guess I don't think I'm aware of anyone in my sort of direct line of sight that would have a Vodafone.
Yeah, I just got them because they're cheap and you get what you pay for.
No service.
No, yeah. Hopefully they'll give me a little bit of a refund. Be nice.
Fingers crossed. Alex, do you have any other business apart from Vodafone's rubbish service? I assume we're not going to be getting sponsored by Vodafone anytime soon. No ad revenue from them.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. I'll be blacklisted by them by the time the week's over.
What's your podcast? The ex Sega Mania. Why am I blanking on the name?
Hall of Fame. Video Game Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
We're recording that on Thursday. 8-Bit Games is the next one.
What is it, sorry?
8-Bit Games is the next one.
Games. What options do we have?
Well, we had this discussion on Discord the other day, and everyone was just like, "Oh, I don't really know if I don't really have a lot of 8-bit games that mean that much to me. I'm not sure why we picked this category." And I was like, "Well, clearly none of you guys had a NES because there are no 8-bit games that aren't on the NES that are worth playing, and I stand by that." They were all like, "Oh, you could have a Spectrum game." Yeah, you could do if you want a shit game. They're all on the NES, mate. There's no Master System games people give a fuck about. Put down your Commodore 60, throw that shit away and play. And if I don't win this one, because I haven't won any yet, everybody else has won one in the polls except me, who's the host of the fucking show. If I can't win with like Mario 3 or something, then what is the point? Well, who's going to have a better game than that? What are they going to say?
There is a better 8-bit
columns on the Master System or something. I don't know.
I mean, who you're messing with, that could well do it.
We keep just getting like set upon by maniacs who voted Shenmue in.
I'm on a kick where I'm only allowing myself to go unless I'm like watching a sports game, because I like following the hashtags for whatever sports game I'm watching. That's quite fun. I'm trying to only go on social media twice a day, so I'm missing all of this at the moment. But yeah, I keep sort of logging on and seeing just like the leftovers from some sort of hijacked community poll on your Twitter.
So like I started doing it now where when the game has won, I then do like a little post that says congratulations to the whatever number it is inductee into the Hall of Fame. Right, the one I've done about Shenmue has currently got 205 likes and 50 retweets.
Yes.
It's been seen by 15,000 people.
Hey, that's what you want to do.
None of us are happy about it except Steve. And I don't even know if it counts as a JRPG. That's the weird thing about it.
Oh, that's hard. You don't really level up, do you, with them?
No. 205 likes, and it's had 67 plays. Fucking work that out. Listen to the fucking... We had people like attacking us. Like one guy was like, oh... He was getting really annoyed that Final Fantasy VII was losing. He was like, it's not fair. You've picked one Final Fantasy game and you've got Shenmue the entire series. It's like, eh? No, we don't. You come across as if you don't listen to the podcast, which is the whole point of this. If you listened, you'd understand what Shenmue was voted for. But well, whatever. People are stupid.
Probably doesn't. And on that bombshell, I've been David. He has been Alex. We have been the Runner Shoe. And I'm out.
Keep gaming. Where's everybody going? There you go.